Imagine being ignored by your own father, watching him abandon your mother, abuse your trust, and walk away without guilt. That's AJ's life. A boy left in the shadows, a boy drowning in anger. But one day, AJ sees his father with a stunning young woman. Not just any woman, his father's new girlfriend. And in that moment, AJ makes a vow of revenge. He swears he'll steal the one thing his father treasures most. Day and night, AJ schemes, pulling her closer, step by step. But here's the question. Will AJ succeed in seducing her and completing his revenge? Or will his heart betray him and turn this dangerous game into something far more real? 1 Year No More. A story of revenge, romance, and dangerous desire. The world around her seemed to fade away as she stared up at him, her brilliant blue eyes swimming with disbelief. She whispered that she never thought they could actually be together, that this whole whirlwind romance felt like a surreal dream. But AJ wasn't just swept up in the moment. A dangerous, possessive glint flashed in his gaze. This was it, the culmination of his plan. With a confident smirk playing on his lips, he leaned in closer and asked if she was ready to make that dream a reality. And just like that, any remaining doubt evaporated into the charged air between them. He swept her into a passionate embrace, their kisses growing deeper and more desperate with every passing second. Pulling back for a breath, he whispered her name, Claire, his finger gently tracing her lips as she looked up, completely lost in his spell. The Grand Elda Grand Hotel loomed under the starry night sky, a beacon of luxury that did little to soothe AJ's simmering resentment. He felt a weary sigh escape his lips as he walked through the polished lobby, the marbled floor reflecting the opulent lights. He was done with this place, done with the facade. With a determined stride, AJ entered the elevator, his hand reaching out to press the call button, his expression a mask of cool indifference. The doors slid open, revealing a mirrored interior where his reflection stood, looking back at him with a gaze that held a flicker of defiance. Inside the elevator, he declared to himself, "I've had enough of this place." As the doors began to close, isolating him in his own world of pent-up frustration, his eyes narrowing with a dangerous spark. The air in the room was thick with unspoken tension as AJ, a high school senior, found himself in his father's impeccably designed office. He'd been summoned, pulled away from cram school for yet another lecture. "Hey," AJ called out, his tone laced with weariness. His father, a man whose presence commanded attention, looked up from his papers. "AJ, you're here? Come on over." He gestured for his son to approach, holding out a stack of documents. "I was at cram school, and you suddenly called me over. What is it this time?" AJ questioned, his voice betraying his frustration. His father's reply was direct. "You're coming with me to Singapore tomorrow for the shareholders' meeting. Take these and look them over first." AJ's mind raced, an exam looming the next morning, but his father's words were final. "Huh? Sorry, Dad. I have an exam tomorrow morning, so I probably shouldn't go. You should just go with your secretary this time," he offered, trying to deflect. "I miss class so often to go to work with you. I'm falling behind my classmates." His father's expression hardened. Sitting in a classroom can't compare to gaining real-world experience. The confrontation escalated as his father reminded him of his destiny. "Don't forget, you're the sole heir to my 5-star hotel business. All you do is fool around. How can I trust you to manage things in the future?" The weight of his father's expectations pressed down on AJ, fueling his rebellious spirit. With a condescending smirk, the father scoffs at his son's desires, questioning if all he wants to do is fool around. But AJ has reached his breaking point. He explodes, his voice cracking with years of pent-up frustration. He screams that he's been at his father's beck and call since he was a kid, forced to abandon any semblance of a social life. All he wants is a little freedom, but his father is a brick wall, coldly retorting that everything he does is for AJ's own good. AJ desperately reminds him that he's 18 now, a high school senior, but his father slams his hand down, declaring that this isn't a discussion, it's a command. That's the last straw. AJ's hand clenches into a tight fist. With chilling resolve, he announces that he's leaving this house for good. The air goes still as his father's eyes narrow into dangerous slits, his voice a low growl. "What did you just say?" He screamed that he was leaving, his voice echoing with finality. But his father's rage simmers beneath a chillingly calm surface. His voice drops to a low, possessive growl, reminding AJ that he is his father, the one who holds all the power. With a cruel smirk, he delivers his ultimatum. If AJ wants to leave, he'll make sure he has absolutely nothing to his name. To prove his point, he slides a single credit card across the desk, a symbol of the financial prison he's kept his son in. But the thread is empty. All the money in the world can't buy his obedience anymore. AJ's eyes burn with newfound resolve as he makes one last, desperate plea for freedom. All he wants is to just be himself. With nowhere else to go, AJ pulls his motorcycle to the curb, the engine sputtering out into the lonely night. He glances up at the cheap motel sign, a grimace twisting his lips as he realizes this is his only option. He'd have to sleep here tonight. The room is even more pathetic than he imagined, and as he collapses onto the laughably small bed, his feet hang over the edge. This is the price of freedom, but there's no time for self-pity. Survival is now his top priority, and that means he needs cash, fast. He flips open his laptop, and a familiar glow illuminates his determined face. It's a crypto trading platform. A bitter, ironic memory surfaces, his father teaching him how to trade just last week. A wry smile plays on his lips. He remembers the lesson perfectly, recognizing the signs of a downward trend. The very tool his father controlled him with might just be his ticket to true independence. His eyes are glued to the screen, the glowing chart of his future reflected in his intense gaze. He expertly sets his order, determined to time the market perfectly. A satisfying chime rings out, profit. It's not a fortune, but it's his. A defiant smirk plays on his lips as he vows to get rich, just to spite the old man. The sound of successful trades becomes the new soundtrack to his life, a constant rhythm of victories piling up day after day. A few months later, the scene is drastically different. He's traded the grimy motel for a sun-drenched beach resort, a cold drink in hand. But as he watches a happy couple walk toward the water, a wave of crushing boredom hits him. He got the money he wanted, but traveling feels hollow. He dropped out for this, while his friends are all in college. For the first time, a new thought surfaces: maybe he should go back, finish his senior year, and then go find his dad. The gentle waves lapped at the shore, but the paradise vacation had officially lost its charm. As AJ stared out at the endless ocean, a single, bitter thought crossed his mind. He wondered how the old man was doing. With his decision made, he traded the beach for the brick-and-mortar reality of his old high school. It was the first day of the semester, and his return didn't go unnoticed. Whispers erupted as a group of girls spotted him, fawning over how handsome he was in person. But their fluttering hearts meant nothing to him. A heavy feeling settled in his chest as he walked, his steps leaden on the pavement. His friends were all gone, graduated, and in college. Just as loneliness threatened to consume him, a voice shouted his name, and he looked up to see someone running right for him. The voice belongs to a girl now doubled over, panting as she finally catches up to him. It's Jenny, his childhood friend, and she playfully grills him for not telling her he was returning to school. For a moment, AJ is at a loss for words, simply offering a vague apology about having a lot to deal with. But her mock anger melts away instantly, replaced by a radiant smile. She's absolutely thrilled they're both seniors now and in the same class. As they walk, AJ rubs the back of his neck, feeling awkward about being the oldest kid there. But before he can wallow, Jenny tells him he's not alone, just as another familiar voice yells his name. Suddenly, a pair of arms wraps around him from behind. It's his buddy, Chio, who was supposed to be in college. Turns out, he also took time off, creating an unexpected reunion. Chio let out a relieved laugh, joking that for a second, he was worried about who he'd copy homework from. With a faint, wry smirk, AJ coolly told him to do it himself. The lighthearted banter felt good, and for a moment, a wave of genuine gratitude washed over AJ. He really was lucky to have his friends. But this reunion was just a pit stop on his road to revenge. Later that day, he stood sentinel across from his father's favorite upscale restaurant, waiting. He imagined the old man's stunned face seeing his success, a look that would surely morph into an arrogant lecture about how he'd taught him well. Just as dusk began to bleed into night, the purr of a familiar engine cut through the air. A sleek sedan rolled into view, and AJ's gaze hardened. He knew that car. The sleek sedan pulled up, its familiar engine a dead giveaway. AJ's eyes narrowed, his gaze fixed on the car as it stopped. He saw a figure emerge, then another. His father stepped out, but it was the woman beside him that snagged AJ's attention. A shiver ran down his spine as he recognized her features, a stark contrast to the cold exterior he was used to. That woman. AJ's thoughts raced, a dawning realization sparking in his eyes. Could she be Dad's new girlfriend? The woman, with her flowing blonde hair and striking blue eyes, turned, her gaze seeming to pierce through the twilight. She clutched a purse, a subtle elegance about her posture. AJ felt a surge of something he couldn't quite name, a mix of shock and something far more complex. Then, the scene shifted. He watched from across the street as his father spoke to her, a gesture of money exchanged between them. The woman's reaction was clear, a hesitant refusal, a look of discomfort. AJ smirked, a grim satisfaction settling in. Just as I thought, he muttered, his revenge plans solidifying in his mind. The door to the private room slid open with a soft rumble, and the woman who stepped inside froze on the spot. Her brilliant turquoise eyes widened in shock, a small, involuntary gasp escaping her lips as she took in the scene. Calculated smirk playing on his features as he completely ignored his father standing beside her. His intense gaze was locked only on her. It was, he said, a pleasure to meet her. The first shot in his war of revenge had just been fired, and his target was already caught in the crossfire. Just when AJ thought his day couldn't get any worse, he spots a familiar figure. It's his father, the very man he ran away from, casually strolling out of a fancy building. But he's not alone. On his arm is a young woman, someone who looks like she should be in a college lecture hall, not with a man his dad's age. AJ's mind reels, trying to process the bizarre scene. He has to know what's going on. Peeking through the restaurant window, the situation only gets more intense. His father slides a thick wad of cash across the table, telling her to take it. Visibly flustered, the woman refuses, but he insists, telling her it's for tuition and that she's earned it. He then firmly places his hand over hers, pressing the money into her palm. She's left speechless, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. AJ's jaw tightens as a cold, hard certainty washes over him. So this is why his old man hadn't bothered to call. He was too busy entertaining a new woman to even remember he had a son. A lifetime of bitter memories suddenly floods his mind. He recalls acing his exams, only for his father's promise of a reward to be endlessly delayed. He remembers being forced to obey every command, even being kept from his own mother after the divorce. Whether it was studying or working, AJ had done everything demanded of him, desperately chasing an approval that never came. Seeing his father now, splashing cash on a stranger without a second thought, confirms everything. The old man hasn't changed one bit. He's still the same selfish monster who only ever thinks of himself. While he, the son, was forced to suffer, his father was taking everything that should have rightfully been his and just giving it away to a complete stranger. The injustice burns through him. He turns his back on the scene, walking away with a heavy, deliberate stride. For a fleeting moment, a bitter thought crosses his mind, sarcastically wishing them happiness. But that fragile resignation shatters in an instant. The shadows on his face can't hide the dangerous glint that ignites in his eyes as a chilling resolve takes hold. He's done begging for scraps from his foolish father. He's done being the forgotten son. From now on, he won't ask for what's his. He's going to take it all back himself. His father's new plaything was on the move, slipping into a waiting taxi. But AJ wasn't about to let his only lead just disappear into the night. With a cold resolve, he clicks his helmet into place, his eyes burning with a dangerous focus seen through the visor. Twisting the throttle, his bike roars to life, a mechanical predator hot on the trail. The chase, however, doesn't end at some lavish condo or luxury boutique. Instead, the taxi pulls up to a humble little cafe. The woman hurries inside, apologizing to a friend for being late and offering to put on an apron to start her shift. The so-called gold digger is working a part-time job? A flicker of confusion crosses AJ's face. This definitely wasn't part of the script he'd imagined. From the shadows, AJ watches the hours tick by on the cafe wall. His father's new plaything is surprisingly diligent, gracefully serving customers without a hint of the gold digger he'd imagined. As closing time finally approaches, she and her coworker get ready to shut down the shop for the night. But right on cue, the gentle chime of the front door slices through the quiet. She turns, a polite welcome on her lips, but the greeting freezes. Standing in the doorway is AJ, his presence radiating a cold, magnetic intensity that instantly captivates the room. Her friend gasps, whispering about the handsome stranger, and all she can do is stammer in agreement. Caught completely off guard by the predator who just walked through her door. Her coworker is practically having a meltdown, whispering that if she weren't taken, she'd be asking for his number right now. She practically begs her friend to take the order, afraid she'll be tempted to cheat on her own boyfriend. With a deep breath, the woman approaches AJ's table, trying to keep things professional by offering the daily special. But AJ isn't here for coffee. He smoothly dismisses the menu, his gaze locked onto her. He tells her he's not interested in anything to drink. He's been interested in her from the moment he saw her. The question hangs in the air. Can he get to know her? She's completely stunned, a deep blush flooding her face as she stammers, utterly speechless. Spotting her friend about to melt down, the coworker comes rushing in to intervene. Without missing a beat, her coworker Somi jumps in, playing the ultimate wingwoman. She blurts out her friend's name, Claire, adding that she's 21 and totally single. While Claire is absolutely mortified, the damage is done. AJ calmly takes in the new information, a slight smirk playing on his lips as he introduces himself as AJ, 19. Somi is practically vibrating with excitement, grabbing a flustered Claire and dragging her to the back room for a serious pep talk. She argues that a guy who looks like a celebrity doesn't walk in every day and insists it's time for Claire to finally open her heart again after everything she's been through. Convinced there's no harm in just talking, she gives her friend one last encouraging push back towards the predator waiting at the table. Propelled by her friend's relentless encouragement, Claire finally relents with a flustered, barely there, okay. Taking this as a win, Somi tells her to make him her favorite drink, a Thai iced tea, a detail Claire is shocked she even knew. A moment later, with her heart hammering against her ribs, she nervously places the drink on AJ's table. But our boy isn't focused on the drink itself. His gaze is sharp, cutting right through her as he states, "You like Thai iced tea?" It's not a question, it's a declaration. Stunned that he noticed, she can only manage a timid nod. A dangerous smirk touches AJ's lips as he stares down at the glass. Looks like he'll be developing a taste for it, because this hunt is just getting started. 2 weeks fly by, and the scene shifts to the sprawling campus of Bangkok University. As a crowd gathers at the university gates, whispers ripple through the air. 2 students gawk at the ridiculously handsome guy leaning against the wall, wondering if he's some kind of pop star. That's when Somi, ever the instigator, drags a reluctant Claire to see what all the fuss is about. But as they get closer, Claire's eyes widen in disbelief. It can't be. Before she can even react, Somi is waving her arms wildly, shouting AJ's name and proudly announcing she's brought her friend. Mortified, Claire immediately hides her face behind her bag, but the damage is done. He coolly greets them both by name. Peeking out, she asks what he's doing here. With a smile that could melt glaciers, he says he finished class early and just had to see her. Mission accomplished, Somi promptly ditches them, leaving a flustered Claire alone with the man who's been occupying her thoughts. His voice, low and smooth, cuts through the awkward silence as he asks if him waiting for her is uncomfortable. Flustered, Claire quickly denies it, stammering that she's just not used to this kind of attention. AJ's gaze softens as he laments that it's been 2 long weeks. With her constantly buried in work, they've barely had any time to talk. Feeling a pang of guilt, she starts to apologize, but he expertly flips the script, claiming he's more worried she's working too hard. He then casually mentions that since the cafe is closed, she must be free. Unless, he adds with a probing stare, she has other special work to do. Relieved, she confirms she's free for the day. A predatory smile touches his lips. Without hesitation, his hand gently closes over hers as he declares he's taking her somewhere nice to eat. The hunt continues. The scene explodes onto a seriously lavish hotel, bathed in the golden light of sunset. This isn't just any dinner date. AJ is going all out, ushering his father's new girlfriend into an exclusive private room dripping with elegance. As a waiter stands by, the woman's eyes go wide, her composure cracking as she scans the menu. Her mind reels at the insane prices. It's her first time anywhere this fancy, and even the cheapest dish costs a small fortune. But our boy AJ? He's the picture of cool confidence, leaning back in his chair with a casual smirk. He tells her not to worry about the cost and to order absolutely anything she desires. He's got it covered. What a power move. Despite the grand offer, she politely insists on paying her own way, feeling more comfortable just ordering the most affordable option. Still, a thought solidifies in her mind. From the very beginning, she had a feeling that AJ was someone important. And now, she's starting to see just how right she was. Just when she thought the night couldn't get any more extravagant, AJ leads her out front to a gleaming red sports car. Stunned, she asks if it's really his, and our boy just smirks, casually mentioning it would be more comfortable since she's wearing a skirt. This next-level display of wealth sends her mind reeling. She feels completely out of her depth, wondering why someone so seemingly perfect would ever pursue her. Back inside, AJ senses her unease and gently asks if she's uncomfortable, calling her by name. She admits that she just feels like she doesn't belong in such a high-class world. This new information makes AJ pause, but he quickly pivots with a devastatingly sly question. He leans in, asking if she prefers older guys, feigning concern that he won't be able to win her over. Boom. Claire is left completely frozen, at a total loss for words. Gathering her courage, Claire softly explains that when it comes to relationships, she doesn't believe age matters at all. As long as two people's personalities match, that's the only thing that's important. A wave of relief washes over AJ's face, a subtle smirk playing on his lips as he admits he was worried she only liked older guys. Checkmate. He smoothly leans back, flipping the script by telling her that for their next date, she can decide where they go. Claire hesitates, her insecurity showing as she says she only knows ordinary, simple places. But our boy AJ is on another level. He gently reaches across the table, his fingers lightly brushing against hers, reassuring her that it's perfectly fine. He just wants to get to know her better. Just as the tension peaks, the scene cuts, jumping forward 3 days to a bustling high school. Back in the classroom, AJ's got a self-satisfied smirk plastered on his face as he taps away on his phone. It's so obvious that a female classmate leans over, prying into who he's chatting with to make him look so happy. Another friend chimes in, teasingly announcing that AJ is pursuing a college girl. Boom. The gossip mill is officially in motion. Caught red-handed, AJ glares at his friend, muttering that he heard him before brushing it off, insisting they're just talking and it's nothing serious. But that sly grin on his face tells a completely different story. Later that night, as rain streaks down the window, our boy is back at it. Lounging in his pajamas, he's laser-focused on his phone, the screen's blue light illuminating his determined expression. His fingers fly across the keypad as he types out his next move. "Claire, are you free on Sunday?" And just like that, he gets a reply. Claire cheerfully messages back that she's all done with her work for the day. Wasting no time, AJ proposes a casual lunch date in the park. She hesitates, pointing out the recent rainy weather, but our boy has an answer for everything. He smoothly reassures her that if it rains, he'll just drive them somewhere else, completely neutralizing her concern. She agrees, sealing the deal for their next meeting. But the moment his phone hits the table, the charming facade crumbles. A sinister smirk twists his lips as he gazes at the downpour, thinking the harder it rains, the better. The truth comes pouring out in his mind. His father hasn't even bothered to call since their fight. He coldly imagines his dad's shock upon discovering that his forgotten son has stolen his woman. Now, it's just a matter of time. In a final, chilling thought, he apologizes to the unsuspecting Claire. She never should have met his dad. Just as planned, Sunday arrives under a gloomy, overcast sky. The stage is set at a scenic park by the water, where AJ waits under a tree, the picture of calm patience. A soft voice calls his name, and he looks up to see Claire rushing towards him, looking absolutely adorable in a pink dress. Apologizing for the wait, she asks if he's been there long, but our boy smoothly brushes it off, claiming he only just arrived. That's when he spots it. She's holding a full-on picnic basket. He can't help but let a genuine thought slip out, calling her cute. She shyly admits she made sandwiches herself and hopes he'll like them. With his plan running flawlessly, AJ puts on his most charming smile, declaring he can't wait to try them as he eagerly suggests they find the perfect spot for their picnic. They find a perfect spot by the water and spread out their checkered blanket. As swan boats drift lazily across the lake, Claire sighs contentedly, remarking on how peaceful it is. She even admits that when she has time, she often comes here by herself just to unwind. But our boy AJ isn't exactly feeling the tranquil vibe, internally grumbling that watching boats is a total bore and they should have hit the movies instead. His cynical train of thought comes to a screeching halt. However, the moment he turns to actually look at her, a realization dawns on him. She seems so much happier than on their last date. As the light catches her hair, her radiant smile is genuinely breathtaking. And in that instant, AJ finally gets it. He completely understands why his old man is so captivated by her. Snapped out of his trance by her cheerful voice, he turns to see Claire holding a sandwich right up to him, offering the first bite. AJ's brain short-circuits for a hot second as he realizes she's actually trying to feed him, not letting the moment get away from him. He gently takes her wrist and brings the sandwich to his own lips. He takes a bite, and bam! His eyes fly open in genuine shock. This thing is ridiculously good, way better than anything he expected. Claire giggles, telling him he doesn't have to eat it so fast, but our boy is completely won over, mumbling with a full mouth about how amazing it tastes. That's when he spots it, a tiny smudge of dressing on the back of her hand. She starts to apologize, but before she can even mention a napkin, AJ smoothly captures her hand. And in a move that cranks the tension up to 11, he leans in and licks it clean. Claire's entire face flushes a brilliant crimson as she stares at him, completely stunned. Pulling back with a devilishly smooth smirk, AJ holds up her hand for her to see, declaring it's all clean now. Her heart hammers against her ribs, and she stammers for him not to joke around like that, her voice barely a whisper. But our boy isn't letting her off the hook that easily. He leans right back into her personal space, his eyes locking onto hers as he playfully asks if she's shy. Just as the tension reaches its peak, a deep rumble echoes from the heavens. The sky abruptly darkens and unleashes a sudden, torrential downpour. Claire looks up in disbelief, murmuring that it's raining as fat drops begin to soak their blanket and everything on it, instantly ruining their perfect date. As the sky unleashes its fury, AJ doesn't look fazed in the slightest. In fact, a cool, calculating glint enters his eyes. Calling out to Claire over the drumming rain, he suggests they find shelter, casually mentioning that his place is just around the corner. A few moments later, they're standing soaked in the entryway of a massive, sleek mansion, puddles forming at their feet. Claire is completely taken aback, internally marveling at the sheer size of his house as she watches the downpour intensify outside. The situation has just escalated, big time. AJ returns to find her still lingering awkwardly by the door. With a hint of a smirk, he points out she hasn't moved an inch. He holds up a fresh towel, urging her to come further inside so they can finally dry off. The ruined picnic is now a distant memory, replaced by a whole new level of dangerous, private tension. The rain hammers down on a sleek, modern mansion, trapping our boy AJ inside with his target. He gently rubs a towel through her soaked, platinum blonde hair, his voice low as he points out she's completely drenched. Flustered, she apologizes, admitting she never expected such a downpour. Bro, this is his chance. AJ plays the part of the concerned gentleman, insisting she shower and change to avoid getting sick, even offering his own clothes. But when she shyly refuses, he decides it's time to make his move. Calling her by name, Claire, he confesses that ever since they first met, he hasn't been able to stop thinking about her. His hand slides down to her leg as he admits just how happy she makes him. Claire's eyes go wide, a deep blush spreading across her cheeks as AJ leans in, closing the distance until their faces are inches apart. His gaze is electric as he leans in, assuring her he's completely serious. He thinks to himself that he's so close to his goal. This isn't a game to him anymore. Tightening his grip on her hand, his voice drops to a low, persuasive murmur as he finally asks the million-dollar question. Will she go out with him? Claire's bright blue eyes are wide with shock, her heart hammering in her chest. Just as the words hang in the air, a massive clap of thunder rips through the night, illuminating her conflicted face. She gently pulls her hand away and turns her head. With a heavy sigh, she thanks him for his honesty, but tells him she's not ready yet. Bro, the shift is instant. AJ's charming expression completely dissolves, replaced by a cold, hard stare. A bitter thought flashes through AJ's mind. Of course, he's immediately convinced she's only hesitating because she's afraid of losing the cushy lifestyle his father provides. But just as quickly, the charming mask is back in place. He sits down a little ways from her and apologizes for being too pushy. But Claire insists the fault is hers, explaining she's had bad relationships before and juggles 2 separate jobs, making her worry she won't have time for him. AJ's mind twists her words, assuming her occasional job is just seeing his old man. Outwardly, though, he's the picture of patience. Leaning closer, he promises to wait as long as it takes, if she'll just give him a chance. His voice is pure honey, but his thoughts are pure poison. He'll wait forever, as long as he gets his revenge. The storm has passed, and a new day dawns bright and clear. As the last droplets of water fall from the leaves, AJ walks Claire out, not quite ready for their time to end. He smoothly offers to give her a ride, but she politely turns him down, explaining she's already called for a car. Bro, you can see the disappointment hit him like a truck. He internally sighs, thinking this whole thing was a complete bust. A terrible start to their supposed first date. But just as he's about to spiral, Claire completely flips the script. Sensing his dejected mood, she quickly reassures him, suggesting they go out again. Not only that, she promises to prepare food herself. And then, she drops the bombshell. Even with the rain, she didn't think their date was bad. AJ's head snaps up. He latches onto her words, promising their next date will be even better. As he basks in this sudden victory, she shyly gets his attention. And just when AJ thinks he's won the lottery, Claire completely short-circuits his brain. Leaning in, she plants a soft, quick kiss on his cheek, thanking him for his patience and already promising their third date will be even better. But the moment is fleeting as a taxi pulls up to the curb. With a final, cheerful wave, she's gone, leaving AJ standing alone on the sidewalk. He watches the car drive away, a dazed look on his face as his fingers drift up to touch the warm spot on his cheek. And that's when the mask cracks. Dude, the whiplash is insane. The sunny street vanishes, replaced by a dark, chilling aura swirling around him. A twisted, triumphant grin spreads across his face, his eyes glowing with malice. Oh yeah, he thinks. Next time is his. Next time, he'll get everything he wants. Meanwhile, the story pivots from AJ's twisted victory to the heart of his father's empire, the gleaming, sun-drenched spire of the Golda Grand Hotel. Inside a lavish office sits the man himself, Mr. Pitch, completely absorbed in his work until a sharp knock breaks the silence. A young, blonde woman enters, her heels clicking on the polished floor as she announces her presence. Mr. Pitch makes some small talk about the recent rain, telling her not to catch a cold. His tone is almost paternal, but with a weird, condescending edge as he remarks that young girls are too healthy to get sick easily. She just smiles brightly, playing along and promising to do her best to help him. But then, she changes the subject, and the friendly atmosphere chills. She asks if his son has returned home yet. The atmosphere in the office shifts from chilly to straight-up icy. The blonde woman presses on, her voice firm, telling Mr. Pitch that it's about time he told his son about that. The powerful chairman's composure finally cracks, and he slumps in his chair, the weight of the world on his shoulders. He admits he's at a loss. AJ still refuses to come back. But then, pride takes over. He dismisses her with a wave, coldly stating that AJ will return on his own. Just as she reaches the door, he calls her name. His gaze turns sharp and calculating as he observes her. He notes that she seems to be in a suspiciously good mood lately, always staring at her phone. He leans forward, his voice low and laced with accusation, and asks the one question she wasn't ready for. Are you in love? She completely freezes, a deer in the headlights as a bright blush floods her cheeks. She's so busted, caught completely off guard. The woman freezes solid, a massive blush creeping up her neck as her bright blue eyes go wide. She's totally speechless, but inside her head, it's a different story, a happy, dreamy hum that confirms everything. Yeah, Mr. Pitch definitely hit the mark with that question. Later that night, the city is still under a full moon. Back in the cold, sterile fortress of his office, Mr. Pitch is still grinding away when his desk suddenly buzzes to life, the sharp sound cutting through the silence. He glances over, irritated, wondering who could possibly be calling at this ungodly hour. But his annoyance instantly evaporates, replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. The name glowing on the screen is the last one he ever expected to see. Son. It's AJ. The phone screen slices through the silence of the dark room, displaying a single, cold word. Son. With a flash of irritation, the man answers the call, his voice already laced with condescending venom as he asks if his son is lost and needs directions home. But on the other end of the line, AJ is the picture of smug satisfaction. Lounging with his shirt unbuttoned and a wicked smirk on his face, he coolly fires back that his old man seems to be doing just fine on his own. Ignoring the jab, his father demands to know when he's coming back. AJ, however, is now in control. He calmly states that he'll return when his business is concluded, casually mentioning he's back for his senior year. His father scoffs, telling him to do whatever he wants, clearly doubting his son can survive without him. AJ twists the knife one last time, his voice dripping with mock disappointment as he points out that his father never seems happy to see him. But the old man's patience has finally snapped, and he curtly announces he's hanging up. The line goes dead, but AJ isn't fazed in the slightest. He just scoffs, a look of chilling resolve solidifying on his face as he lowers the phone. The next morning, he's strolling onto the school grounds, letting out a deep yawn. He'd stayed up way too late video chatting with Claire, the target of his revenge. A soft, genuine smile tugs at his lips as he reminisces. He can't believe they could talk for hours, a dangerous sign that his vengeful game is already becoming far too real. Just as AJ is lost in his thoughts about Claire, a cheerful voice yanks him back to reality. AJ. It's his classmate, Jenny, waving energetically as she falls in a step beside him. But her morning routine is a little different. Before AJ can even process what's happening, she whips out her phone and starts a TikTok live stream. She brightly announces to her fans that she's walking to school with him today, putting him right on the spot. The chat immediately explodes with hearts and comments shipping AJ x Jenny. Jenny just giggles, leaning in to whisper that all her viewers, and even their classmates, think they're a couple, leaving AJ caught in an awkward social media spotlight he never asked for. With a hopeful blush, Jenny suggests that everyone ships them because they probably really do look like a couple. AJ finds this amusing. Even after being gone for a whole year, they're still pairing him up. But Jenny's tone quickly shifts, her curiosity getting the better of her as she asks if he's still talking to that college girl. Thinking fast, AJ puts on a dismissive front, assuring her he had his reasons but won't be speaking to her anymore. The relief on Jenny's face is immediate as she admits he scared her for a second. But while she's relieved, a cold look flashes in AJ's eyes. No way, he thinks with dark resolve. I would never be serious with her. The lie hangs between them as they walk into school, and hours later, AJ is still lost in thought, barely hearing the teacher dismiss the class for the day. As the final bell echoes through the classroom, AJ is already lost in his own world, his stylus a blur across his tablet. A friendly voice pulls him out of his trance. It's his blonde-haired classmate, curious why he dives into drawing the second class ends. With a determined look, AJ explains that he can't waste any time. There's a Webtoon contest in a few months. Noticing the fantasy characters on the screen, his friend gets excited, rambling about how cool the genre is. But his excitement quickly fades as he senses something is off, pointing out how distracted AJ was in class. Though AJ tries to brush it off, his friend presses, offering to help. Seeing an opportunity, AJ leans back and asks for advice on where to take a girl to impress her, a sly glint in his eye. Well, what's she like? His friend asks eagerly. Declare like the last place? The name hangs in the air, and AJ's focus shatters, his thoughts consumed by her once more. With his friend's question hanging in the air, AJ's mind drifts away, consumed by visions of Claire. He begins listing her qualities, his voice softening with each word. He explains that she seems to like quiet places, she's a good cook, and above all, she's beautiful. But the description goes deeper than surface-level attraction. He admits that after getting to know her, he discovered a cute, shy side to her, and found that she's surprisingly easy to be around and a hard worker. His friend listens, a knowing smirk slowly spreading across his face. "Oh," he teases, "you sound like you've completely fallen for her." The observation hits AJ like a splash of cold water, and he immediately flinches, a deep blush creeping up his neck. "We're just talking. I'm not being serious," he blurts out defensively. But his friend just offers a sweet, disbelieving smile, playfully agreeing to take his word for it. A brilliant idea flashes in his friend's mind, straight from the pages of his webtoon. He suggests AJ take her stargazing at night, gushing about how awesome a similar scene was in his story. But AJ just sweats, telling his friend not to compare real life to a comic. Despite his reservations, he makes the call later that night. Claire is absolutely floored, bursting with excitement over the phone. She confesses she's always loved stargazing but was too afraid he'd be bored to ever ask, even offering to prepare food. Standing in the shower, AJ can hardly believe his casually thrown-out idea actually worked. His surprise is cut short, however, when she eagerly asks if he wants to video chat right then and there. Thinking fast, AJ leans back with a smirk, coolly telling Claire he just got out of the shower and doesn't have a shirt on, asking if she minds. Her immediate, flustered reaction is to yell for him to get dressed, but her blushing smile gives away just how much she's enjoying this. Hours fly by as they talk, the conversation flowing easily until she notices the clock has already hit 10. She's the one who suggests ending the call, leaving AJ momentarily confused in his bed. He remembers they talked even later last night, a brief flash of disappointment crossing his face. But her logic is flawless. They need to save their energy for stargazing. Realizing she's right, he wishes her good night, his hand clutching the phone tight with anticipation for their date. With the phone call over, AJ sinks back onto his bed, the anticipation for his date with Claire buzzing through him. A slow, calculating smirk spreads across his face as he gazes at nothing in particular, his mind already racing ahead. His blue pajama top hangs open, revealing the physique he's all too aware of, and a glint of determination sharpens his eyes. He muses aloud that tomorrow is the day, and he'd better get ready. But is he preparing for a simple night of stargazing, or for the next critical phase of his revenge plot? Whatever the answer, it's clear he's feeling confident, fully prepared to see his plan through to the end, no matter where it leads. The next day, AJ is already putting his plan into motion. He walks into a convenience store, completely unfazed by the clerk's cheerful greeting or the admiring whispers of another customer. His mind is elsewhere. Back in his sleek sports car, he runs through a mental checklist of his purchases: water, Claire's favorite chocolate, and a small box that promises a very eventful evening. With a predatory glint in his eyes, he calls his target. He smoothly tells Claire he's on his way to pick her up, so she shouldn't bother with the bus. As his finger presses the ignition and the engine growls to life, his cold inner thoughts reveal the truth. This little conquest is taking longer than he'd like, and he's not about to let it drag on for more than a year. The game is on, and just like that, the scene shifts. AJ whisks Claire away to a stunning lakeside park, the city lights replaced by a brilliant blanket of stars. Claire is completely captivated, gushing about how beautiful the night is. Playing his part to perfection, AJ smoothly agrees and finds a cozy spot to lay down a blanket for them. Once they're settled on the grass, she leans in, playfully asking what delicious treats he's packed in his little picnic basket. He confidently lists off fried fish and sweet and sour pork. But hold on, Claire's cheerful expression suddenly falters. She stammers that the pork is fine, but her voice trails off when it comes to the fish. For the first time, Claire's cool facade cracks, his eyes widening with a hint of genuine concern. Did our mastermind actually mess up? His panicked question slices through the night air. He can't believe she made such a simple mistake. Mortified, she apologizes for not asking him preference first. But AJ just offers a sad smile, explaining that fish just brings back some awful memories for him. The world around them fades, pulling us into a painful flashback. A lonely a young AJ, eats by himself while his parents' angry voices echo through the house. One night, a fishbone gets stuck in his throat. Terrified and unable to speak, he could only cry as his parents, lost in their argument, failed to notice him distress. The fighting continued all the way to the hospital, which was the last time he ever saw his mother. Back in the present, he confesses the heartbreaking thought he carried for years. Maybe it was his fault they divorced. The confession hangs in the air, stunning Claire into silence. Then, she gently rests her head on his shoulder, a simple act of trust that leaves his calculated plans in total disarray. Completely thrown by his raw honesty, Claire's calculated plan evaporates into the night air. She offers a surprisingly gentle promise. If he ever feels lonely, she'll be there to listen. But then, in a stunning reversal, Claire flips the script. She praises him, telling him she knows how hard he must have worked. She sees him not as a spoiled kid, but as someone capable, smart, and different from everyone else. And that one comment hits him like a ton of bricks. For the first time, someone has looked past his family's wealth to see the effort beneath. A quiet, "Thank you," escapes his lips before he gently kisses her forehead. As they gaze at the beautiful sky, a shooting star blazes across the darkness, and she excitedly tells him to make a wish. The game has definitely changed. AJ watches her, a small smile playing on his lips as she presses her hands together, lost in her wish. He can't help but think she's so earnest, just like a little kid. When she finally opens her eyes, he breaks the silence, his curiosity getting the better of him. With a playful blush, she coyly refuses to tell him her secret. But AJ isn't letting it go that easily. He leans in closer, his voice dropping to a low murmur, asking if her wish had anything to do with him. She gets completely flustered, admitting that it was, but insisting she still can't say more. A wicked glint sparks in his eyes. He cups her chin, his voice a seductive whisper as he gives her a heart-stopping ultimatum. Tell him now, or he's going to kiss her. The game is back on, and he's not playing around. Her cheeks blaze with color as she averts her eyes, completely trapped by his audacious demand. With a defeated sigh, she whispers that it looks like she doesn't have much of a choice. Oh, but that's all the invitation our boy needs. Without a second's hesitation, AJ closes the gap, his fingers gently guiding her chin up to meet his intense gaze. And then he dives in, capturing her lips in a kiss that sends sparks flying through the night. The world seems to melt away, leaving only the two of them. He pulls back slightly, a look of pure, unadulterated triumph in his eyes. Still breathless and flustered, she tries to reclaim some ground, stammering that this means she's off the hook about her wish, right? But AJ's smug, victorious smirk says it all. The game isn't over, it's just getting more interesting. The kiss instantly deepens, and for a moment, they're both completely lost in it. A soft murmur escapes her as her hand instinctively clutches the fabric of his shirt. But just as quickly as the passion ignited, reality comes crashing back down. She shoves him back, her chest heaving as she stammers for him to wait. Our boy looks genuinely confused, asking what's wrong. With a panicked glance around, she points out the obvious. It would be disastrous if anyone saw them, but AJ just scoffs, turning his gaze to the stars with an infuriatingly cool demeanor. He dismisses her fears completely, saying who cares? It's just a kiss. But just as she's about to protest, his entire vibe shifts. He turns back, his eyes locked on hers with a sudden, unnerving intensity. "Claire," he says, his voice low and serious, and she looks up, completely caught off guard. He leans in close, delivering the final, devastating blow, a confession that changes everything. "I like you." Stunned into silence by his sudden confession, Claire can only stare back at him, her heart thundering in her chest. The game, the revenge, all of it evaporates, leaving only the raw honesty of his words hanging between them. A soft, breathless sigh escapes her lips as she admits that she really likes him, too, in a way she's never felt before. But seeing her genuine reaction, AJ suddenly pulls back, a flicker of guilt crossing his features. He starts to apologize, saying they aren't even officially dating and he shouldn't have been so forward. But Claire quickly cuts him off, insisting it wasn't his fault. She started it. With newfound courage, she looks him dead in the eye and declares that she also likes him a lot. A slow, gentle smile spreads across AJ's face, all the tension melting away. He asks the one question that changes everything. "Then, should we be together?" He tenderly strokes her hair, his touch sending shivers down her spine as she leans into him, her heart pounding a frantic, hopeful rhythm. A single, heartfelt word escapes Claire's lips, filled with all the hope and excitement thrumming through her veins. "Okay." As the night breeze rustles the leaves around them, she notes the sudden chill in the air. But AJ, ever the opportunist, sees his opening. He leans in close, his voice a low, suggestive purr that sends a fresh wave of shivers down her spine, completely unrelated to the cold. With a sly, confident smirk that could melt glaciers, he locks his gaze onto hers and makes his move. He proposes they continue their star watching somewhere a little more private, somewhere like his place. Oh yeah, our boy isn't wasting a single second. He's moving this game to a brand new playing field. Leaning in close, his voice a low, seductive whisper, AJ makes his move. With a confident smirk playing on his lips, he drops the classic line, asking if she wants to go to his place to watch the stars. The bold invitation hangs in the air, catching her completely off guard. Her eyes widen in shock as she stammers his words back at him, unable to believe what he's just suggested. A deep blush creeps up her neck as she becomes completely flustered. She quickly insists that it would be better to let things happen naturally, shyly admitting that she isn't ready for that step just yet. Overwhelmed, she hides her face against his chest. But her cute, flustered rejection only seems to amuse him, and a soft, knowing chuckle escapes his lips. This game is just getting started. With a sly smirk hidden behind his hand, AJ smoothly backpedals, telling her not to overthink his bold invitation. He plays it off with a charming excuse, insisting he was simply worried about her catching a cold as the night air grew chillier. He suggests they can watch the stars for just a little longer before he drives her back to her dorm. Once she timidly agrees, he seizes the opportunity. In one fluid motion, he wraps his arms around her from behind, pulling her flush against his chest. He murmurs that it's warmer this way, leaving her a blushing, flustered mess. But later that night, the facade drops. Sprawled out on his bed, AJ lets out a frustrated sigh. He can't believe his plan failed again. He really thought she'd be an easy catch. Still, he's not defeated. They're officially dating now, and he knows it's only a matter of time until he gets another chance. The camera pans to a sleek, red sports car, hinting at the extravagant lifestyle AJ is becoming accustomed to. Inside, AJ and his father's girlfriend are locked in a passionate kiss, their bodies pressed close. The scene is charged with an undeniable chemistry, each touch and glance fueling the escalating tension. As their lips part, AJ whispers a compliment about her kissing skills, his words laced with a possessive pride. She blushes, attempting to maintain a semblance of decorum, but AJ's confidence is unwavering. He dismisses her concern about being seen, asserting their status as a couple and the normalcy of their affection. He then admits his own restraint, hinting at a deeper desire that he's holding back for now. The narrative confirms their dating status, setting the stage for future developments as AJ continues his calculated pursuit, still determined to get what he wants. With a sharp, knowing smirk, AJ smoothly agrees to let things happen naturally, twisting her own words back at her like a weapon in his game of seduction. He then suggests they grab a bite to eat to escape the cold, taking her to a humble roadside diner that clearly takes her by surprise. But just as they're about to head inside, his phone rings, and the mood instantly sours. The name, Dad, glares from the screen, and AJ answers with pure, undisguised irritation. His initial defiance quickly melts away as the conversation takes a serious turn. His expression shifts to one of grudging concern when he learns his father isn't feeling well, and he ends the call with a heavy, resigned sigh. Looks like the game just got interrupted. The urgent call ends, and the entire vibe of the date flips on a dime. With a serious expression, AJ apologizes and explains they have to ditch the diner due to a sudden emergency. Before she can even fully process his words, he firmly grabs her hand, his mind already jumping ahead to the fact that they'll need a major wardrobe upgrade for where they're going. And boy, does he deliver. They arrive at a towering, luxurious building, one of his family's own hotels. Gone are their casual clothes, replaced by a sharp suit for AJ and a breathtakingly elegant white dress for her. As they approach the hostess, the staff's immediate recognition makes it clear this is his world. He coolly confirms he's there for his father, leaving the woman absolutely stunned. She's quickly realizing there's a lot more to AJ than she ever imagined. Just as the reality of AJ's wealth begins to sink in, he drops another bombshell. Apologizing for the sudden change, he explains he has to represent his father at a critical dinner meeting with the shareholders. She takes the news in stride, her mind racing with the realization that his father must be a true titan of industry. Not wanting to leave her behind, AJ leads her toward a private lounge, asking her to wait for him there. But before he can even finish his sentence, their conversation is cut short by a sharp voice calling his name. A woman named Jenny appears, immediately sizing up the situation. With a look that's anything but friendly, she pointedly asks if this is his girlfriend, Claire, before introducing herself as a good friend. Then, grabbing his arm, Jenny pressures him to hurry, reminding him that everyone is waiting for the chairman's son to start the event. AJ is pulled away, leaving a shell-shocked Claire all alone in the lavish room. Left utterly abandoned, Claire's composure crumbles into a million pieces. Standing alone in the lavish lounge, the elegant dress AJ bought her suddenly feels like a costume she doesn't deserve to wear. This world is too bright, too rich, and a painful realization sinks in. She doesn't belong here. Her mind immediately conjures an image of Jenny, who fits so perfectly against the chairman's son. She's even seen them on his social media, looking like the ideal couple, and the comparison is devastating. The horrible thought takes root. What if she's just a side character in his story? A temporary amusement? Unable to stop the tears, she escapes to the restroom, desperate to hide her breakdown. But there's no escape. The whispers follow her, as two women start gossiping about AJ's mysterious new date. The whispers cut through the restroom air like knives, confirming every single one of Claire's worst fears. The women gossip openly, comparing her to the classier Jenny, decreeing that AJ and Jenny are a far better match. The casual cruelty is a gut punch, leaving her feeling utterly worthless. 2 agonizing hours later, the sound of determined footsteps echoes in the now quiet lounge. AJ finds her sitting alone and gently strokes her hair, telling her the long meeting is finally over. His eyes drift to the empty table, and he asks if she ate. Too embarrassed to admit she couldn't, she lies, claiming she ordered fried rice. Oblivious, he remarks that she must really love it. As he offers a ride, and they start to leave, Claire suddenly freezes, planting her heels firmly on the floor. She isn't going anywhere. Sensing her hesitation, AJ turns, his voice softening as he asks what's wrong. With her gaze fixed on the floor, Claire finally lets her insecurities spill out. She confesses that she thinks he and Jenny are better suited for each other, questioning why he ever pursued her in the first place before quickly apologizing for overthinking. But for AJ, it all clicks into place. This is why she was so quiet, and why she lied about eating. In a swift, decisive motion, he closes the distance, backing her against the bar until her hands press against his chest. He reveals he knew she hadn't eaten, explaining that he'd been so enraged the staff neglected her that he almost had them all fired. Then, looking directly into her eyes, he dismisses her fears about Jenny, insisting that he's not interested in anyone but her. Loosening his tie, his gaze burns with intensity as he finally confesses the simple truth. It's all because he likes her. AJ's confession hangs in the charged air, and Claire gasps, a deep blush spreading across her cheeks. Every single insecurity vanishes in an instant, replaced by pure, unfiltered joy. A brilliant smile finally breaks through her anxiety as she breathlessly admits that she likes him a lot, too. That's all the permission AJ needs. He closes the final gap between them, capturing her lips in a passionate kiss that says everything words can't. But as they part, reality crashes back in. A flash of panic crosses Claire's face, and she pushes back gently, her hand landing on the bar as she insists they shouldn't be here. Unfazed, AJ just murmurs that everyone else has already gone home, pleading for just a little longer. Their intimate moment, however, isn't so private. From a nearby doorway, a woman with piercing green eyes watches them, a silent, chilling storm brewing in her gaze. The world blurred as AJ collapsed, his hand weakly fumbling for his phone before he was pulled under by a wave of exhaustion. His last thought was that it was already 7 o'clock. 1 year later, sunlight streamed into a bustling high school classroom. A cheerful, blonde-haired student bounded over to AJ's desk, vibrating with energy. He excitedly asked AJ if he was free for the movies tomorrow. When AJ mentioned he had plans with someone named Claire, his friend's eyes lit up, suggesting he just invite her along. With a hopeful grin, he added that another girl, Jenny, would go if AJ was there. A slow, calculating smirk touched AJ's lips. He agreed to ask Claire, musing aloud that they hadn't been to the movies together yet. With a cool, calculated expression, AJ glanced up from his phone in the classroom, confirming to his friend Chio that Claire was coming. Chio's face lit up, and he eagerly declared he'd see them tomorrow. The next day, at a massive, sunlit mall, Claire sat alone on a bench, her hands clasped nervously in her lap. She hoped she'd be able to get along with AJ's friends. Her anxious thoughts were interrupted by approaching footsteps and a friendly voice asking if she was Claire. Looking up, she saw a cheerful young man who introduced himself as Chio, AJ's friend, and gushed about how pretty she was, instantly putting her at ease. Claire mentioned she heard from AJ about Chio's love for drawing. The cheerful boy lit up, proudly declaring his dream to be a Webtoon artist. They bonded instantly over a shared love for fantasy romance series, and Claire found him incredibly easy to talk to. Seizing the moment, a blushing Chio asked if she would model for his main character, thinking he knew she was his perfect muse the instant he saw her. Before a flustered Claire could fully process his request, AJ's sharp footsteps interrupted them. He arrived with Jenny, his gaze locked on the pair as he coolly stated he was giving their friend a ride. Ignoring Chio completely, AJ took Claire's hand and announced they were getting food before the movie, leading her away and leaving the other two standing in stunned silence. At the restaurant, Jenny casually remarked that AJ must really love the steak, since he ordered it every single time. Lost in the taste, AJ simply confirmed it was delicious. With a familiar ease, Jenny then chided him for always picking out his vegetables. Watching their easy banter, Claire felt like an outsider, deciding it was best not to interrupt. Her thoughts were shattered when Jenny suddenly turned to her, pointing out how quiet she'd been and asking if she felt unwell. Completely flustered, Claire quickly stood up, announcing she needed the restroom. Alone, she let out a shaky breath, admitting to her reflection that she always got nervous around Jenny. In the cold silence of the restroom, Claire wrestled with her thoughts, admitting to herself that ever since meeting Jenny, she'd been completely bothered. Remembering a friend's advice that she always overthinks, she tried to force a smile and cheer up. But her moment of self-reflection was shattered when Jenny walked in, her expression unreadable. Slashing straight to the point, Jenny stated there was something Claire needed to know. With chilling directness, she declared that it was better for Claire to break up with AJ sooner rather than later. Her voice dropped, leaning in to deliver the final blow, revealing that AJ was actually. The unspoken truth left Claire utterly broken, collapsing into a stall as quiet sobs racked her fallen form. With a grave expression, AJ's friend Chio slashed straight to the point, demanding to know if AJ was just playing around with Claire. He admitted he didn't know AJ's goal, but as a friend, he had to issue a stern warning. If AJ kept this up, he would end up losing everyone. Just then, the soft click of heels announced an arrival. AJ's face softened as he saw Claire, telling her it was perfect timing and he'd been worried. But her face was a mask of sorrow. She flatly stated she wasn't feeling well and was going home. Panicked, AJ grabbed her arm, insisting he'd take her, but she pulled away sharply, telling him she could get home herself. Before he could react, Jenny latched onto his other arm, cheerfully announcing the movie was about to start. Dragged into the theater, AJ was a ghost. His mind was miles away, trapped in the memory of Claire's heartbroken face. He barely registered Jenny's voice slashing through the haze as she and Chio appeared, tickets and popcorn in hand, ready for the show. Forced into a seat, he sat stone-faced while Jenny tried to play the charming host. Leaning toward Chio with a saccharine smile, she purred that it had been a while since they'd done this. But just as the lights dimmed, AJ abruptly fired to his feet, his patience gone. He was done playing games, leaving a shocked Jenny and a popcorn-choking Chio calling his name into the darkness. AJ's shoes clacked, his mind racing. Claire couldn't be far, but his calls went unanswered. "She's not answering her phone," he muttered, frustration building. Then, his eyes locked onto a distant, radiant figure. He knew it was her. As he neared, he saw her slumped, fiercely clutching a phone. "I can't give it to you yet," he thought. "Mom, you almost made it so I couldn't stay in school," she cried, electric blue eyes glistening. "Couldn't you have just waited until I graduated?" AJ's patience snapped. "Claire," he boomed. She flinched, startled. "What are you doing here? Aren't you going to the movies?" AJ's gaze was intense. "I was worried about you." My girlfriend isn't feeling well. How could I not care? Claire's voice was a fragile whisper. Worried about your girlfriend, huh? Do you really mean that? AJ's raspberry pink eyes widened in disbelief, his voice sharp as he called her name, demanding what was suddenly wrong. He insisted they talk, asking if he'd upset her. Claire, a fragile, distant smile on her face, declared he no longer needed to pretend. She knew his kindness was a charade, exhausted by the deception. Let's break up, she announced, stating they were from two different worlds before turning away. AJ watched her retreat, a fierce realization hitting him. How did she find out? What exactly does she know? He connected her sudden shift to her return from the restroom. But he wouldn't let her go. His feet moved, his hand snaking out, seizing her arm and stopping her cold. Claire, listen to me, he urged, desperate. She sharply pulled her arm free, a silent gasp escaping him as she fled once more. Tears streamed down Claire's face as her raw anguish exploded, demanding to know what more he could possibly explain. Her voice cracked with despair, insisting that any explanation was pointless now. AJ absorbed her pain before dropping a bombshell of his own, admitting her worst fears were true. At first, he was just planning on playing around with her. But his tone shifted, growing desperate as memories of their time together flashed through his mind. He confessed that without even realizing it, he had fallen for her, insisting that if he were truly deceiving her, he never would have invested so much of himself. With an intense gaze, AJ dismissed Claire's doubts, telling her not to use their different backgrounds as an excuse because it was a weak argument. He held her hand gently against his chest, his voice softening as he urged her to calm down and just listen. In a moment of raw vulnerability, AJ admitted he knew he was wrong and pleaded for another chance to make things right between them. He leaned in, promising that from now on, it would be just the two of them. The sudden, heartfelt confession left Claire completely flustered, stammering that she needed time to think. Seizing the moment, AJ offered her a ride home, and with a quiet whatever, she finally relented, walking away with him. A dark-haired man slumps onto a couch, breathing a sigh of relief. He reflects on how close he came to losing Claire, his mind flashing back to the moment she almost left him, a shock that left him completely blank. A grim determination hardens his features. He knows he has to speed things up. Elsewhere, Claire is on the phone with her friends, recounting the recent drama. One friend shrieks, shocked they almost broke up, insisting AJ is eccentric about her. She then pries, asking how far they've gone. Flustered, Claire admits they've only hugged and shared a moment, causing her friend to mock her for not being conquered yet. A second, calmer friend interjects, advising that as adults, they just need to be prepared. She reassures a mortified Claire, telling her not to worry. AJ must be serious. Still reeling from her friend's shameless teasing about AJ's amazing fallen form, a flustered Claire abruptly ends the call and collapses onto her bed. She agonizes over her impulsive decision to go to his place for a movie, her mind racing with what-ifs. Later, settling onto his couch, the air crackles with unspoken tension. AJ pulls her into his side, his voice a low rumble as he thanks his little cutie for coming. He gently strokes her hair, but just as she melts into the moment, he suddenly breaks away, stammering that he'll go get them drinks, leaving her utterly bewildered. Still flustered, Claire heads to the kitchen, announcing she'll grab some sodas. Her mind is a chaotic mess as she pulls a bottle from the fridge, desperately trying to rein in her racing thoughts. She tells herself to calm down. They're just watching a movie. But as she turns the corner, she slams right into AJ. The bottle flies from her hands, hitting the floor and erupting in a sticky blast that sprays all over them. Mortified, she apologizes profusely, but AJ calmly takes the blame. Looking at the mess, he grins, joking that she should shower quickly before she attracts any ants. Under the steaming spray of the shower, her cheeks burned with embarrassment. She couldn't believe she'd been so distracted, all because she kept replaying her friend Somi's scandalous advice in her head. A sudden sound from outside the glass door made her freeze. Peeking out, her eyes widened. There stood AJ, a towel slung dangerously low on his hips, a smirk tugging at his lips. He leaned in, his voice a low, teasing rumble, asking if she wanted to shower together. Her mind blanked. Seeing her shock, He offered to wait outside, but with a shaky breath, she surrendered, telling him to come in. Under the cascade of hot water, AJ pulled her flush against him, his arms wrapped securely around her waist. He leaned in, his voice a low, possessive murmur against her ear as he confessed his love for his little cutie. A deep blush spread across her cheeks. The closeness was overwhelming, yet she melted into his hold. This couldn't be real. She whispered that it felt like a dream, that she never imagined they could truly be together. A smirk played on AJ's lips as he heard her confession. He turned her to face him, asking if she was ready to make that dream a reality. The vibrant canvas of the night sky, studded with twinkling stars, slowly yielded to the soft, ethereal glow of dawn. AJ lay awake, his raspberry pink eyes sharp and restless beneath the soft light of morning. Every inch of him hummed with an unfamiliar tension, a storm brewing beneath the surface. He shifted slightly, a low thrum of thought vibrating through him, his gaze fixing on Claire. Her, like old lace, hair fanned around her, utterly serene in her deep slumber. She's sleeping so soundly. He mused, the words a silent whisper in the stillness. This unexpected closeness, this quiet closeness, was shattering his carefully constructed facade of revenge, demanding something more, something real. A memory of their unbridled passion from the night before flashed through AJ's mind, and he understood her deep, exhausted sleep. But as he watched her, his sharp eyes held none of the triumph he'd expected from his revenge. Instead, a profound sorrow settled over him. An unspoken apology echoed in his thoughts. "I'm sorry, Claire." His hand gently caressed her hair, a final, tender gesture. The devastating reality crashed down on him. This was it. This was probably the last time they would ever see each other. Her bare feet padded softly down the stairs as she found AJ waiting, immediately questioning why he hadn't woken her. He turned, now dressed in a sharp black jacket, and coolly apologized, explaining he'd taken a while to change. He then announced he would walk her back to her dorm, an offer that left her completely baffled. After a moment of confused hesitation, she agreed. The ride in his sleek sports car was thick with an unnerving silence. Glancing at his stoic profile, she began to panic, wondering if he was angry she'd slept in. A terrible feeling coiled in her gut as she nervously fidgeted. Outside the towering hotel, AJ turned to Claire, his voice a low, unexpected rumble. "Hey Claire, there's something I want to ask you." She blinked, confused, her eyes wide. A spark ignited as his hand decisively landed on her leg, commanding her attention. He paused, then dropped the explosive device. "Could you stop working part-time jobs? I can take care of everything. Will you move in with me?" Claire gasped, her electric blue eyes welling up. "AJ," she whispered, clutching his hand, a rush of relief flooding her. "Thank you for asking me to live with you." She finally managed, a joyous, tear-filled smile spreading across her face. "You were so quiet. I thought something was wrong." Yet, her practical nature surfaced. "Moving in is fine, but I don't want to trouble you with money." AJ just watched her, the weight of his own sudden, staggering decision hanging heavy. As they sat in the sleek red car, she nervously laid out her plans, asking if it was okay to keep working for another year, at least until her senior internship. A hopeful, gentle smile touched her lips as she awaited his answer. But AJ's response was a heavy, defeated sigh. His mind twisted her innocent words into a devastating conclusion. She was still thinking about a life connected to his father. He bitterly thought to himself that in the end, she still chose that old man. What was he even hoping for? His resolve hardened. "In that case," he began, his voice chillingly calm. "Let's break up." The words dropped into the silence, shattering her world. Her eyes went wide in utter disbelief, unable to process what he'd just said as she stammered, asking what he could possibly mean. Her fingers nervously intertwined in her lap, her voice a soft, uncertain whisper as she wondered if she'd done something wrong. AJ, raspberry pink eyes shadowed and unreadable, finally turned from the road. He declared she'd done everything right, except for one critical thing. His arms crossed, a tense barrier of defiance, as he slowly revealed the missing piece. His gaze sharpened, burning with accusation, demanding to know why she was clinging to his father. Her electric blue eyes snapped wide, mouth falling open in utter disbelief. She fiercely retorted that she'd never even met his dad, insisting he had the complete wrong idea. AJ's face clouded, a fleeting struggle crossing his features before he buried his face in his hands, muttering, "Misunderstanding." He then looked up, a predatory glint entering his eyes. "Is that so?" Her hands flew to her mouth, a gasp catching in her throat as the devastating realization crashed down. His dad was Mr. Pitch. AJ twisted his head, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "So you finally remembered?" His eyes dropped, a chilling confession escaping. "I only got close to you to get back at my dad for fooling around with you." He snapped his gaze up, piercing her. "Did you really think I dated you because I liked you?" Eunice flinched, hand to her chest. "But there's nothing between me and Mr. Pitch," she pleaded. AJ scoffed. "Oh yeah." A flash of cash, then his voice slashed through the air. "Why would my dad give you so much money? Why meet him? Why would a college student like you be alone with my dad?" Her tear-filled eyes locked onto him. "If I misunderstood, then explain it." A heartbreaking sob tore through her. Shoulders slumping, she whispered, "What's the point? You won't believe me anyway." Fresh tears streamed down her face. "I was such a fool, believing everything you said. I really thought you liked me." A bitter understanding dawned. "Now I get it. Everything up until now was just a lie." A single tear escapes her electric blue eyes as the crushing realization hits. Her friend Jenny had been right about everything. Turning without another word, she walks away, each step echoing her profound heartbreak. From the driver's seat of his sports car, AJ watches her retreat, his jaw clenched tight with a storm of conflicting emotions. He can't stand it. Slamming his foot on the gas, the car screeches out of the parking lot. Later that night, Jenny finally finds what she's looking for on her phone. A forgotten photo reveals the whole story. The day she saw AJ's father with that very woman and captured the suspicious meeting, a secret she meant to ask AJ about, but never did. Consumed by a churning suspicion, the father's new girlfriend hunched over her phone, its glow illuminating her focused face. She wrestled with a disturbing realization. That woman had been trying to worm her way into both AJ's and his father's lives. Information was scarce online, making her investigation a relentless, infuriating pursuit. Her phone vibrated, snapping her from her research. "Hey, AJ," she answered, a hint of accusation already in her tone. "I was just about to call you." AJ's voice echoed back. "What's up?" She immediately jumped on him, dismissing his implied question. "And no, I didn't say anything to Claire that day. But seriously, it was really crappy of you to ditch me at the movie theater like that." Then, a sudden, chilling silence. What he said next made her fire upright in bed, eyes wide with utter shock. "What?" Her hand flew to her mouth, the phone trembling as her world tilted. "You and her broke up?" The words were a dizzying, catastrophic blow, twisting everything she thought she knew. AJ dragged himself onto campus, a living ghost lost in his own shattering world. A sharp tap on his shoulder jolted him, his raspberry eyes snapping wide as Jenny's worried face came into view. "You look terrible," she gasped, concern etched on her features. "Did you even sleep last night?" A hollow laugh escaped him. "Do I look that bad?" Jenny practically shouted. "Yeah, you do." Claire's name, a raw wound, had kept him up all night. The truth of his father's deception and his own colossal mistake burning deep. "AJ, let's go live on Do." Jenny tried again, pulling at his arm. "People are talking about you." But AJ was miles away, his gaze fixed on nothing. "AJ, are you even listening?" she cried, her voice cracking. Nearby, classmates snickered about their lovey-dovey morning, a sound Jenny waved away. "It's just how we always play around," she insisted, turning to AJ for confirmation. But AJ's raspberry eyes remained distant, his soul consumed by a tempest of regret. AJ's hand sharply pulled away from hers, a stark rejection. Two female classmates watched him go, one calling out, "Don't do that again from now on." Inside the classroom, a teacher announced a new, frantic policy. "Attention, all third years. Everyone will take their graduation exams earlier to prepare for college entrance. University students will share experiences this afternoon, so ask them anything." As the clock edged toward noon, AJ, his mind elsewhere, suddenly rose. "Hey, AJ, where are you going?" a classmate asked. "Home," he stated flatly. She insisted he wait for the afternoon's college visit. AJ, however, slashed her off, his voice emotionless. I already decided which school I'm going to. A complicated expression crossed her face as he walked out. Letting out a heavy sigh, AJ decides that's enough for today. The revenge he meticulously planned is complete, but the victory feels hollow, leaving only a bitter, empty ache in his chest. As he questions this hollow feeling, his phone buzzes with an incoming call. Dad. He reluctantly answers, his voice flat. But his father's words on the other end send a violent jolt through him. As rain begins to fall, shadowing his face, the news shatters his composure. His raspberry eyes widen in utter disbelief, a single, choked word escaping his lips. What? The scene cuts to an imposing hospital building, the unspoken answer hanging heavy in the air. In the sterile quiet of the hospital room, AJ sits beside his father's bed. His father, looking weary, asks if he's eaten, but AJ just tells him to worry about himself. He learns the illness isn't new. It's been a problem for a while, a secret his father kept hidden. Frustrated, AJ demands to know why he wasn't told. Then, his tone shifts as he asks about the really pretty college girl. His father, confused, clarifies he means Claire, before casually stating she quit yesterday. The words detonate in the silent room. AJ's raspberry eyes widen in shock as he leaps to his feet, sending the stool crashing to the floor. Wait, he shouts, his voice trembling. Wasn't she your new girlfriend? His father just looks back, baffled, scoffing that he's too busy staying alive to date. He reveals Claire was just a helper he hired after a fall. The entire foundation of AJ's vengeful plan shatters in an instant. AJ's father smirked. Weren't you dating Claire? Why would I steal my own son's girlfriend? AJ's raspberry eyes widened in disbelief. Huh, he choked. Wait, Dad, how did you know? He frantically questioned. His father's gaze sharpened. I didn't know at first. He coolly explained how Claire, his helper, left her phone. The damning truth spilled out. He'd seen AJ's desperate messages. I miss you so much. After questioning Claire, his son's twisted scheme was laid bare. And sure enough, I was right, his father concluded, a cold satisfaction in his tone. AJ's world spun, his face draining of color. The heavy realization hammered him. Not only was his revenge a lie, but his father knew everything. His raspberry eyes burned with shame. What have I done? He uttered internally, profound regret shattering him. AJ, his face a storm of profound regret, finally choked out his confession. Dad, the single word hung heavy, laden with unsaid apologies, a lifetime of mistakes contained within it. He'd done something truly awful to Claire, he admitted, every shameful detail tumbling from his lips. He recounted the monstrous ways he'd lied to her, the calculated deceptions, the cruel games that had shattered her kind heart. He confessed everything, the vivid memories of Claire's anguish burning behind his raspberry eyes. But AJ's father just sat there, a chilling, indifferent expression etched on his face, listening without uttering a single word. The silence was a crushing weight. Dad, tell me. AJ pleaded, his fist clenching, desperate for guidance, for anything. He buried his face in his hands, tears welling. Please tell me. What should I do now? The raw despair in his voice echoed in the desolate room. AJ's soul was a tempest, his face contorted, a desperate plea ripping from him. Please tell me. What should I do now? His father, usually stern, now bore a crushing weight. AJ, you ended up like this because of me. He confessed, voice thick with regret. I pressured you, didn't care properly. Flashbacks flooded AJ's mind. A young boy buried under books, his father's voice a constant demand. I forced you to study hard, dragged you abroad, kept you from fun. The father's hand, a lifeline, seized AJ's. I pushed you to survive if I wasn't around. But I forgot you're young, and you need your family. His gaze softened. Regarding your actions, solve problems yourself, do the right thing, and never worry about consequences. That'll be the most valuable lesson. Tears streamed down AJ's face, his raspberry eyes squeezed shut as the crushing weight of his colossal mistake slammed into him. His father's hand reached out, a silent plea. Come here, the once domineering man urged, his voice softened beyond recognition. You little rascal, let your old man give you a hug. AJ hesitated, a tempest raging inside him. Before he was enveloped in an embrace he hadn't known in years. His father's hand gently patted his back, a silent wave of comfort washing over him. "I'm not a kid anymore. Stop calling me that," AJ muttered, a final flicker of rebellion. His father simply offered a tender, knowing smile, eyes closing in quiet understanding. The scene blurred, transforming into a vivid memory of his father, younger, holding a tiny AJ by the shimmering sea. No matter how much time passes, his father's voice echoed in the present, a profound whisper, "You'll always be Dad's little rascal." Not long after his final exams, AJ's father succumbed to his severe illness, passing peacefully. The profound loss weighed heavily, but before he left, his father revealed the painful truth. AJ's mother had cheated and embezzled funds, leading to their split. This shocking revelation settled deep within him. AJ's uncle stepped in, offering solace. "It's okay. Uncle will take care of everything," he assured, confirming he'd manage the business until AJ graduated. With a quiet, "Okay," AJ accepted. Now, with his father's final lessons echoing, AJ gripped his phone, his raspberry eyes burning with a new resolve. What he needed to focus on was winning Claire back. But a sigh escaped him as he stared at his screen. She blocked me. I don't even know how to start." The path ahead was anything but clear. The next day, AJ sat frozen in his red car, dread in his raspberry eyes. His blonde-haired friend, a jolt of impatience, barked, "Get out and apologize to Claire now." AJ's voice was a choked whisper. "What if she won't see me?" His friend, unfazed, dropped a bombshell. "I already messaged her you're coming." Shock exploded across AJ's face. "What? When have you been talking to Claire?" His friend smirked. "Since the movies. She hates you, not me." AJ erupted from the car, furious. "Why didn't you tell me?" The friend shrugged. "You didn't ask." He twisted the knife. "Can't eat or sleep without Claire, huh? Serves you right." Defeated, AJ muttered, "You're right. Everything you said is true." His foot tapped a frantic rhythm. One terrifying thought consumed him. If I fail to win her back? AJ's raspberry eyes were clouded with despair, haunted by Chio's words. He'd truly end up alone. But a spark ignited. He had to win Claire back. He strode towards the cafe, the door clicking open with a soft whir. Inside, Claire, radiant in her apron, turned with a welcoming smile. "Welcome to," she began, her electric blue eyes scanning the entrance. Her words fell in her throat, the smile crumbling as she locked eyes with AJ. A jolt of pure shock hit her, making her gasp. AJ's gaze was heavy with untold feelings. He managed, his voice a low rumble. Suddenly, the tray in Claire's hand slipped, clattering loudly to the floor. Her voice, strained with disbelief, slashed through the tension. "Why are you here?" AJ's determination flared. "Claire, I want to talk to you." But she was firm, her beautiful hair swaying as she turned away. "I'm working right now, and there's nothing for us to talk about." AJ stood his ground, a desperate resolve etched on his face. "I'll wait for you." AJ, defeated but unyielding, slumped into the chair. "I'll just sit here and wait," he declared, his voice a raw whisper against the quiet. A frigid silence answered him. Then, like a shard of ice, the command tore through the air. "Please leave." The father's new girlfriend spun away, her long, flowing hair swaying with her resolute movement. "I don't know why you came this time," she stated, her voice tight with suppressed anger, "but I won't fall for it again. You wouldn't even listen to me back then, so why should I listen to your explanation now? Just go." Her electric blue eyes, usually so kind, blazed with hurt and betrayal as she finally faced him. "Because I don't want to see you anymore," she choked out, every word a hammer blow. The soft thud of her retreating footsteps echoed in the vast emptiness, leaving AJ utterly shattered. He stood, his shoulders slumping, a profound regret washing over him. His raspberry eyes squeezed shut, a single, raw apology escaping his lips. "I'm sorry." AJ walks out of the building and slides into the passenger seat of the waiting red car, letting out a heavy, exhausted sigh. His blonde friend, Xiao, glances over from the driver's seat. "So, I got kicked out," AJ admits, his face flushed and looking utterly drained. Xiao lets out a small laugh, unable to resist an I told you so." His expression turns serious as he asks if everything at least went according to plan. AJ confirms it did. "Go home," Xiao Qiu instructs, detailing the next step. A careful alibi involving a lost phone. AJ listens, his resolve hardening despite his obvious doubt. Inside the quiet cafe, the female lead notices AJ's phone resting on the table, forgotten. A brief moment of worry crosses her face. His ride is already gone. Suddenly, the screen lights up with a call from Xiao Qiu. She tentatively answers, her breath catching as AJ's voice, low and intimate, comes through the line instead. He explains the situation, asking her to keep the phone for him until tomorrow. A warmth spreads through her as she agrees, the unspoken connection hanging in the air long after she ends the call. A soft sigh escapes her lips as she lingers in the quiet aftermath of their conversation. Her gaze falls upon AJ's phone left on the table. When she picks it up, the screen illuminates, revealing his wallpaper, an old, cherished photo of the two of them. A deep blush warms her cheeks as she realizes he still keeps that memory so close. The image sends a jolt through her heart, a quiet confirmation of the bond they share, making the air feel thick with unspoken emotion and a dangerous, blossoming hope. A sharp slap lands on the back of AJ's head. His friend, Xiao Qiu, glares at him, demanding to know if AJ thinks this is some kind of romance drama. He reminds AJ of the stakes, his voice filled with frustration. AJ can only lower his head and apologize. Later, after his friend falls asleep, AJ quietly whispers his thanks into the dark. Across town, the female lead lies awake, unable to quiet her mind. She keeps thinking about AJ. His phone rests on the pillow beside her, a silent temptation. Her hand hovers over it, debating if a small peek would hurt. Giving in to temptation, her finger taps open AJ's phone. Her eyes land on his social media profile, where a picture of a familiar teddy bear sits under the caption, "Miss you." A memory flashes in her mind. AJ at the arcade, winning that very prize for her. Heat rushes to her cheeks as she quickly sets the phone down, telling herself she can't go soft. But her resolve crumbles. She picks it back up, pulling it close, its soft glow illuminating her face as she stares at his heartfelt message. A hand grips the bedding tightly as she tosses and turns. Her eyes flutter open, and a shadow looms over her. It's AJ, his gaze sharp and intense. "You," she whispers, her heart skipping a beat. Before she can react, a soft warmth travels along her skin, sending a shiver through her. Her mind scrambles, trying to understand what's happening. But a flush creeps up her cheeks as she feels an honest response from her body, an undeniable pull she can no longer control. The chemistry between them is overwhelming. A stark declaration hangs in the air, 1 year. That is the time limit. Her eyes snap open with a jolt, her breath catching in her throat. The haze of sleep vanishes instantly, replaced by the sharp reality of AJ's promise. His words echo in her mind, a vow of freedom within 12 months. The clock is ticking now, each beat of her heart counting down to a future she barely dares to imagine. The weight of his plans settles over her, a mix of fear and a desperate, burning hope. She bolts upright in bed, the remnants of sleep clinging to her. A soft, uncertain sigh escapes her lips. The memory of AJ's promise, 1 year to freedom, feels so vivid, yet so unreal in the quiet morning light. A blush warms her cheeks as a troubling thought takes hold. Has she been thinking about him so much that she's now dreaming of him making such bold declarations? The line between reality and desire blurs, leaving her heart to beat a frantic, uncertain rhythm against her ribs. A silent debate rages within her. One part of her wants to pull back, to stop this dangerous game, but another voice reminds her of the loneliness that would follow. As night settles over the city, the bell on the cafe door chimes softly. It's AJ. His sudden appearance makes her breath catch in her throat. He says her name, his voice low as he begins to apologize about the phone. A flush of heat spreads across her skin. She clutches her apron, commanding herself to stay calm and not to think about what happened last night. AJ's expression falls as she sets his phone on the table without a single glance his way. She tells him it should be fine now, her tone all business. Just as she turns to leave, he calls out, "Wait," and orders a milk tea, creating an excuse to keep her near. Retreating behind the counter, she feels her heartbeat finally steady, but her relief is short-lived. She watches another staff member approach AJ, asking if he has a partner. A warm, unwavering smile touches AJ's lips as his gaze drifts pointedly in her direction. "Sorry," he replies, his voice carrying across the space. "I already like someone." The words, clearly meant for her, hang in the air as she places his drink before him. Her hand trembles, causing the milk tea to slosh dangerously. As the glass slips from her grasp, AJ's hand shoots out, closing over hers to steady it. The sudden warmth of his touch sends a jolt through her entire body. "You almost dropped it," he remarks, a knowing smile playing on his lips as a bit of tea spills. He quickly apologizes for not paying attention and excuses himself to wash his hand. Watching him walk away, her cheeks flush a deep crimson. She wishes she could just forget everything, but his presence makes it impossible. A man's voice cuts through the air, and her expression immediately turns to ice as an old acquaintance approaches. He apologizes for a past incident, insisting he's searched for her. When he grabs her hand, pleading for another chance, she coldly tells him to let go. Suddenly, another hand intercepts his, gripping his wrist with surprising force. AJ stands before them, his voice dangerously low as he asks if the man couldn't see how uncomfortable she was. Challenged, the man scoffs, demanding to know who AJ is, but AJ only meets his glare with a confident smirk. The confrontation ends, but the tension lingers, leaving her reeling. A dizzying haze fills her vision as she presses a hand to her aching head, overwhelmed by the stress. Later, behind the counter, her co-worker voices her concern. She looks away, her expression pained as she admits that both men only bring back terrible memories for her. Turning her back, she clenches her fist, quietly wishing she could erase the past and had never met either of them. A long, weary sigh escapes her lips, heavy with regret. Overwhelmed, she asks to leave work early. Her co-worker quickly agrees, urging her to go handle things. Stepping into the night air, she walks quickly, but a man named Max follows, calling her name. She finally stops, her patience worn thin. "That's enough," she says, her voice strained as she reminds him they broke up long ago. Her gaze then drifts past him, landing on AJ, who watches from a distance. The air instantly thickens. Turning back to Max, she commands him to leave and never bother her again before walking away. She sits alone at a bus stop, a heavy sigh escaping her lips as her mind replays the complicated past. The sting of AJ's initial deception still lingers, a painful shadow over their connection. As she gazes into the night, a meteor streaks across the sky, pulling her back to a warmer memory. She recalls making a silent wish beside AJ, a secret she never shared. A faint warmth rises in her cheeks as she remembers that innocent hope, a wish to be with him always. A single tear escapes, tracing a path of sorrow as the heartbreaking reality sinks in. That wish feels impossible now. Max sits alone in his car, a frustrated sigh escaping him. He broods over Claire's intense anger and the trouble her ex is causing. His phone buzzes on the seat, and as he reads the message, his weary expression sharpens with sudden resolve. He starts the engine and speeds off. Later, outside a tall building, Claire stops abruptly. Max stands before her, casually asking if this is where she lives. Shocked, she demands to know why he followed her. He dismisses her fear, simply asking if she's still upset about the photo incident. The man's grip tightens on her wrist as he dismisses her struggles. With a smug grin, he offers her anything she wants if she'll just come back to him. Her heart pounds against her ribs, but before she can answer, AJ shoves him away. His eyes burn with a cold fury as he steps between them, asking if the man is deaf. He gently turns to her, his voice softening as he checks if she is all right. Her terrified gasp cuts through the air. "AJ, watch out," she screams. A fist connects with a heavy impact, and AJ stumbles back, clutching his jaw. The man sneers, a cruel lesson on his lips about meddling in other people's business. Ignoring him, AJ turns to Claire, his voice firm as he urges her to go to her room. Her worry is a palpable heat between them, but she obeys his urgent command and retreats. Once she is safe, the man lunges, grabbing AJ's collar and demanding they settle this. But AJ's demeanor shifts, his eyes burning with a cold fury. In a blur of motion, he delivers a sharp headbutt, the impact silencing the man's challenge. With a jarring thud, the man slams his forehead into AJ's, sending him stumbling backward. AJ collapses onto the pavement, vision swimming from the impact. The man looms over him, annoyed by his resilience and ordering him to get back on his feet. He snarls that he hasn't even thrown a real punch yet. Desperate, AJ reaches out, grabbing the man's pant leg. "Wait," Let's talk it out, he gasps. As the man raises a fist to finish it, AJ shouts his final gambit. If I get hurt, my dad will make you pay. A memory of a tender moment surfaces. AJ leans close to Claire, her face inches from his. He whispers an unfinished question. So we, the words hanging between them, charged with unspoken feelings. Reality crashes back in with a jarring impact. His attacker slams him to the ground, his head hitting the pavement hard. The world goes blurry. He lies still on the cold asphalt as the man walks away, leaving him defeated under the night sky. The scene shifts to the sterile lights of a hospital, where the father's voice cuts in, formally apologizing on behalf of his nephew. A tense apology unfolds on the hospital steps. The man who struck him mutters his regrets under pressure. AJ bows his head, offering a hollow apology of his own, but a hidden, crimson light betrays the sincerity in his eyes. Later that night, his phone vibrates against the desk, shattering the silence. His breath catches. It's a message from Claire. Are you okay? Her words ask. A warmth spreads through his chest as he reads her concern. She finally reached out. He quickly types back, his heart racing, telling her not to worry. Her voice trembles with worry over the phone as she asks if he's in pain. A faint smile touches AJ's lips as he reassures her, brushing off her concern. The atmosphere shifts under the moonlight when he whispers her name, Claire. He confesses his genuine feelings, admitting he knows she has nothing to do with his father and wants to apologize for his past actions. On the other end, tears stream down her face, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Her voice breaks as she asks if it's too late for him to be saying this now. AJ's voice is low over the phone as he tells her he's caught up with his father's affairs and can't see her just yet. A wave of conflict washes over Claire's face. She quietly thanks him, but admits she's too confused to go back to how things were. I understand, he says softly. Later, he sits by his window, watching a lone shooting star streak across the night sky. Her willingness to even talk to him feels like a miracle. The next morning, sunlight fills a classroom where Claire looks at her phone, a small, hopeful smile on her face. In the bright classroom, a friend teases Claire about checking her phone every 5 minutes. A deep blush spreads across Claire's face as she flusters, defensively denying that she's waiting for AJ's message, and falls right into the trap. Her friend giggles, pointing out she never mentioned a name. The conversation shifts as her friend reveals AJ is transferring to their school. She gushes about how the future chairman of a luxury hotel will make all the girls swoon. For Claire, the world seems to stand still. Her expression grows serious, the thought of him being here, so close and so public, sending a complicated jolt through her heart. She walks under the setting sun, lost in envious thoughts of a friend's romance when AJ's voice breaks her reverie. He stands before her in his new university uniform, looking sharp and mature. A slight smile touches his lips as he explains he wanted to try it on early. He reaches out, gently brushing her hair before pulling back, the simple touch making the air feel warm. His expression turns serious. He invites her to dinner, his intense gaze promising an important conversation is needed. AJ's intense gaze holds hers as he asks if his dinner invitation is okay. She looks up, her expression a mix of surprise and apprehension, rendered speechless. Later, they sit across from each other in a lavish restaurant, completely empty. Overwhelmed by the expensive meal before her, she notes how quiet the place is. AJ calmly explains he booked the entire restaurant just for their privacy. His expression softens as he reminds her of the last time she waited for him, promising, "This time, it's my turn to take care of you." AJ leans over her plate, carefully cutting the food for her. She takes a tentative bite, and her eyes light up in surprise. It's delicious. He watches her eat, a fond smile on his face, before his expression grows serious. He explains that he's leaving for a month-long internship in Singapore tomorrow. His gaze lowers as he asks if he can call her once he arrives. "If I can't see you or talk to you," he confesses, his voice laced with longing, "I won't be able to focus." Heat rushes to her face, her pulse quickening at his raw vulnerability. A blush warms her cheeks as she hesitantly agrees, cautioning that her exams will keep her busy. AJ's expression softens into a genuine, warm smile. "Thank you, cutie," he says softly. His hand lifts, hovering near her for a heart-stopping moment before he pulls it back. She watches the gesture, realizing he's deliberately holding back to make her comfortable. The sky transitions from a fiery sunset to a bright new day. Now dressed in a sharp suit, AJ stands beside his luggage, ready for his trip. He adjusts his tie, His final thought before departing is that he needs to send her a message. AJ's fingers fly across his phone screen as he sends a message. A small smile touches his lips as he types his thanks to a friend for helping him stay in contact with Claire, offering to bring back a gift from Singapore. 10 days later, the warmth of the sun does little to lift Claire's spirits. She sits on a park bench, letting out a weary sigh as she stares at her phone. AJ hasn't messaged me, she thinks, trying to convince herself he's just busy. A shadow falls over her, and a polished shoe steps into view. The father's voice, smooth and questioning, breaks the silence. "What are you doing?" staring at your phone. Startled, she looks up, her heart skipping a beat. "Nothing," she replies quickly, a nervous smile fixed on her face. A man with a kind smile asks if he can sit with Claire, and she agrees. He settles on the bench, casually mentioning he thought she was chatting with her boyfriend. Just as Claire quietly denies it, her phone rings. AJ's name illuminates the screen. Excusing herself abruptly, she walks away to answer, her heart racing. His voice is a desperate warmth against her ear. "Claire, I miss you so much." A blush floods her cheeks as she whispers, "Me too." The call is a wave of relief, washing away the anxious thoughts she'd clung to. The weeks apart only make her miss him more. Claire worries over photos he sends, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. Their video calls are a sweet torment, a brief connection that leaves her yearning. With each passing day, the urge to see him grows stronger. 29 days later, her arms are full of shopping bags as she happily plans a meal for his return tomorrow. A voice cuts through her thoughts. "Need help carrying those?" Her heart stops. It's AJ, standing by a sleek red car, still dressed in his suit. The bags slip from her grasp, scattering at her feet. He explains he rushed back the moment his work ended, not even stopping to change, and offers to carry her things. His fingers brush against hers as he takes the shopping bags, and she murmurs a quiet, "Ah, thanks." Once inside, the groceries are completely forgotten, spilling across the wooden floor. In an instant, AJ closes the distance, pressing her against the wall. His embrace is firm, pulling her in until there is no space left between them. She rises onto her toes, melting into him. The long, agonizing wait dissolves into a single, desperate kiss, a silent confirmation of all the words their phone calls could never truly capture. AJ pulls her closer, their lips meeting in a deep, passionate kiss. He pulls back just enough to look at her, a knowing smirk playing on his lips as he loosens his tie. "It's hot, isn't it?" he murmurs. Her cheeks flush, her bright eyes wide as she looks at him, speechless for a moment before softly agreeing. Her own hands move to his tie, her touch hesitant but firm. Seeing his chance, AJ leans in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper as he suggests they continue somewhere more private. The atmosphere swirls around them as she catches her breath, her cheeks flushed. She starts to ask AJ why he's still holding back, but stops herself, murmuring that it's nothing. His shirt now open, AJ simply tells her not to worry. He gently reminds her that waiting only makes the anticipation grow. Gathering her courage, she looks at him with newfound resolve. Then, she whispers, suggesting they share this moment. A wave of heat rushes through AJ. He tells her she's amazing, admitting it's becoming impossible to keep his distance. AJ's eyes fly open in a flash of panic, his mind racing after an accidental touch. He pulls back immediately, flustered and stammering an apology, insisting he didn't mean to be so forward. Looking up at him, she simply gazes back, her expression soft and unafraid. She gives him quiet permission, her voice a low murmur as she tells him it's all right. His heart hammers against his ribs. The world outside dissolves as the golden afternoon sky melts into the deep blue of night. Later, a plate of steak is set gently on the table. In her kitchen, she smooths her apron, her heart fluttering with anticipation. She practiced this meal just for AJ, hoping he'll like it. Her cheeks flush as she thinks about him staying the night. A knock at the door announces his arrival. AJ steps inside, his eyes landing on the perfectly cooked steak. He suggests they eat together, but she explains she's already had dinner. A playful smile plays on his lips. "Since there's only one chair," he says, pulling her close. "Why don't you sit with me?" Sitting together in the soft light, AJ turns the conversation towards her future. He asks Claire, an English major, if she's found an internship yet. She admits she hasn't, but was thinking of looking down south. A slow, knowing smile spreads across AJ's face. He offers a stunning alternative, intern at the Golda Grand Hotel. At his company, Her eyes widen in shock as an image of the magnificent, glittering hotel fills her mind. It's the most luxurious, sought-after internship imaginable. AJ watches her process the impossible offer, his gaze unwavering. So, AJ holds her from behind, their bodies pressed together in the quiet intimacy of the room. A faint blush colors her cheeks as she gazes upwards, her expression a mix of hope and vulnerability. "I'm still not sure," she says softly, her voice barely a whisper. "You just came back." The questions spill out, revealing the deep-seated insecurity in her heart. She asks if he's here because he loves her, or if his return is driven by guilt. Her voice trembles on the last possibility, wondering if it's just pity. AJ's intense gaze softens with regret as he leans over her, his voice a low whisper. He apologizes for everything, taking full responsibility for his past actions and offering to accept any consequence she sees fit. A single tear traces a path down her cheek. Moved, she gently touches his face, wondering how she could ever harden her heart against him. His kindness, she admits, only makes her feel more ashamed. The air grows warm as they draw closer, the space between them shrinking until their lips meet in a tender, reaffirming connection. The night deepens, clouds drifting across a dark, expansive sky. Inside the room, the air is thick and warm, heavy with unspoken feelings. The hands on the wall clock tick steadily past 11, marking the passage of time in their hidden world. The only sound is the soft whisper of their breaths mingling together, a slow, unsteady rhythm that speaks volumes. The day is bright as they settle into a movie theater, finding themselves completely alone in a sea of empty red seats. Claire looks around in disbelief, whispering, "There's no one in the theater." AJ offers a casual excuse about the movie's runtime, hiding the fact that he rented the entire place just for them. Her face illuminates with pure joy as she calls them super lucky. A soft, knowing smile spreads across AJ's face as he watches her delight, a warmth blossoming inside him. A memory flashes, a man in a hospital bed telling AJ that he knows his feelings for Claire are real, unlike any he's had before. Back in the theater, Claire laughs at a scene on screen, her delight filling the empty space. AJ isn't watching the movie. His intense gaze is fixed entirely on her. He softly says her name, "Claire." She turns, her laughter softening into surprise as her bright eyes lock with his. The air crackles with unspoken feelings as he leans in, closing the distance between them. The world dissolves into a warm, blossoming haze. It's the first day of school. AJ applies cologne and adjusts his tie, a confident smirk playing on his lips as he thinks about finally meeting his cutie at university. On the bustling campus, he checks his phone, remembering Claire said she was around here. A passing student blushes, captivated by his looks. He finally spots her and calls out her name. "Your hair's grown long," he observes as they walk. She shyly replies she didn't know how to style it. Unseen, a man in a suit watches them, his shoe tapping the pavement. A young man in glasses approaches, calling out to her, "Claire." She turns, a hint of surprise on her face. Before she can respond, AJ intercepts with a bright smile, cheerfully noting they can finally attend class together. The man points out that AJ is already late, but he just shrugs, admitting he came to find her first. The atmosphere shifts when the man recognizes him. "You're her ex-boyfriend, right?" he asks. The warmth drains from AJ's expression. He confirms it, then steps closer, his voice low and sharp. The man's voice is laced with disbelief as he looks directly at Claire, asking if she's really gotten back together with AJ. A cold shadow passes over AJ's face. His gaze drops, becoming sharp and possessive, a silent warning that hangs in the heavy air. The temperature in the room seems to rise, the space between them shrinking until it's filled with unspoken tension. He doesn't need to speak. His intense stare stakes his claim, leaving her caught in the silent, heated confrontation between them. Claire stands frozen, her mind racing with questions about her relationship with AJ. The moments of bliss they share are undeniable, but the complication beneath it all lingers. She wonders if his attitude is truly from the heart or just a passing impulse. She admits to the man beside her that she isn't even sure herself. His expression grows serious. He reminds her of the pain AJ caused, of the days he saw her secretly crying. His eyes narrow behind his glasses as he speaks, the memory of his own sister, who was mistreated, fueling his concern. The man's voice is low and urgent. He begs her to reconsider before getting involved with AJ again. his words a desperate plea to protect her heart. A soft, almost wistful smile touches her lips, and she thanks him for his concern. But his words linger, twisting into a blush of guilt that warms her cheeks. She decides to find another internship, needing a plan that doesn't rely solely on AJ's offer. The air grows heavy with her silent conflict as her friend places his hands on the table and rises to leave. As her friend departs, she is stopped in her tracks by an unexpected figure. Her eyes widen in surprise. It's AJ, standing directly in her path. She asks what he's doing here. He gives a soft smile, explaining he found his way to her. Leaning in, his voice drops as he asks for a private moment. Before she can answer, he suddenly takes her arm, pulling her away from her friend. With a firm hand on her waist, AJ dismisses the other man, stating that he and Claire have something to handle together. AJ's gaze is intense as he stands before her. He decides he can't wait any longer, telling her he wants to start over. His voice is earnest as he asks her to be his girlfriend again. The world around her softens into a pink haze as she processes his words. She bites her lip, her heart pounding in her chest. No matter how she tries to resist, her feelings for him are undeniable. After a year together, can they really do this again? Her doubt vanishes. She calls his name and runs toward him. A young woman with a yellow bow in her hair approaches Claire, explaining that an upperclassman has summoned her. Claire looks surprised, wondering if another girl, also named Claire, is present. As she turns to go, the world around her fades to black, replaced by the memory of a chilling warning. In her mind, another woman's voice cuts through a deep red haze, advising her to leave AJ sooner rather than later. She insists his intentions are shallow, that he can have any beautiful, smart girl he wants. I've already warned you, the memory echoes. The chilling warning echoes in her mind, and her eyes flutter closed. A nervous heat rises to her cheeks. She tries to speak, but the words catch in her throat as her lips tremble. She whispers, her voice filled with hesitation. Overwhelmed by a storm of doubt and feeling, she struggles to find an answer. I. Her surroundings begin to dissolve, the textured darkness of her reality fading into an empty, blinding white as she stands frozen, caught between her heart and the fear that has taken root within it. The air grows thick with tension as she lowers her gaze, her eyes clouded with sorrow. She whispers an apology, her voice trembling as she admits she isn't ready. The public rejection hangs in the air, and without another look, she turns and flees. Panic flashes across AJ's face. Claire, wait, he yells, his voice sharp with desperation as he immediately sprints after her. From a distance, another figure watches the entire scene unfold, his expression hardening with an unreadable intensity as AJ gives chase down the path. A smiling girl appears, cheerfully asking if she interrupted them, shattering the tense atmosphere. Moments later, on an empty stone pathway, AJ finally catches up to Claire. His face is a mask of desperation as he reaches for her. Let me be alone for a while, she insists, her gaze avoiding his. He opens his mouth to protest, but her soft plea for quiet time to think cuts him short. Defeated, AJ can only stand frozen, watching her turn her back and walk away, the sound of her footsteps widening the chasm between them. Under the bright sun, she sits alone on a park bench, a heavy sigh escaping her lips. She inwardly scolds herself, thinking a single memory has ruined everything. Her thoughts drift to the girl who interrupted them, Jenny, and the realization that she came to study with AJ. Her hand clenches the bench as she tries to convince herself they're just good friends, but the doubt lingers. A painful awareness washes over her. She's known from the beginning. Jenny probably has feelings for AJ, too. The sharp click of a camera shutter shatters her thoughts. Her eyes snap open, and she spins around to see a man with glasses lowering his phone. He smiles, apologizing for taking a picture because she looked so pretty. As he starts to ask if she minds, her voice cuts through the air, sharp and panicked. Deleted. She shoots to her feet, her composure crumbling as she pleads, please. The startled man quickly backpedals, assuring her that he's deleted the image and offering another apology for his intrusion. A wave of dizziness washes over her as she collapses onto the rain-slicked pavement, her body trembling. Her mind flashes back to a seemingly innocent moment. A classmate, Max, had asked her to turn around, snapping a picture. When she confronted him, he just smiled and said she looked cute. The memory sours, shifting to the classroom where she demanded answers. He admitted he edited the photo for fun and sent it to one friend, never expecting it to spread. Now, she stands defeated in the student affairs office, listening as her scholarship is revoked due to the malicious rumors. Cruel words echo in her mind. A woman's voice calls her an embarrassment, just like her father. The memory is followed by a cascade of whispers from old classmates, their taunts and judgments swirling around her. The weight is too much, and she collapses to the ground, clutching her stomach as a pained gasp escapes her lips. Later, as night falls, AJ sits by a window, tapping a message on his phone. He asks if she's busy, wanting to see her. She deflects, suggesting they talk tomorrow. He quickly apologizes for his eagerness, signing off with a gentle goodnight. In her room, she holds her phone, leaving AJ's message unanswered. He sits on his bed, staring at the screen with a frustrated sigh. She didn't even read it. He knows earning her trust again won't be easy. A flicker of doubt crosses his face before it hardens into raw determination. His eyes gleam with intensity. He'll just have to work even harder. The next day at school, a girl confronts her friend, who is dressed down in a mask and hat. "What's with you?" she demands, asking why her friend is suddenly acting like a freshman again. The friend asks if she's feeling sick, but Claire dismisses the concern. The truth soon tumbles out. Yesterday's incident brought back painful memories of fake, edited photos from her past. A wave of anxiety washes over her as she wonders what AJ would think. Would he find her shameful? Her friend pulls her into a warm embrace, promising that AJ would never believe such lies. "He's completely head over heels for you," she says with a gentle smile. Elsewhere, AJ abruptly stands, turning down a classmate's lunch offer. He has to find Claire, his gaze smoldering with unwavering focus. A voice suddenly cuts through the air. "AJ," Claire calls out, her voice tight with a mix of anxiety and resolve. She bites down hard on her lip, a sudden warmth flooding her cheeks as her heart hammers against her ribs. In that split second, all her swirling doubts vanish, replaced by a single, urgent need to reach him. Pushing through her fear, she raises her voice, clear and determined. "Wait a second," she exclaims, refusing to let the moment slip away. She has to face him now. "Wait a second." A classmate stops AJ in the empty hall, demanding to know why he's still seeing Claire. She presses him, asking what he could possibly like about her. For a moment, AJ's mind drifts to a memory, a quiet moment beside her, a feeling he didn't understand back then. It was a simple desire just to stay with her. A faint, knowing smile touches his lips as he faces the classmate. "I understand now," he says, his voice steady. "I really like her." He turns and walks away, leaving her frozen in silence. The classmate's eyes narrow in disbelief. That can't be it, she thinks, her mind racing. The truth, to her, lies in a sun-drenched memory from childhood. A shy little girl, Jenny, peeks from behind her mother as a young AJ approaches with a kind, open smile. He introduces himself, his voice gentle. For her, it was an instant connection, love at first sight. In her mind, everyone knows how perfect they are for each other. She clings to the belief that they are the ones who are meant to be together. A golden memory of her laughing with AJ burns away, replaced by an image of Claire. If that woman hadn't interfered, the classmate thinks, her mind racing, we should already be together. Disgust twists her features. To her, Claire is just a schemer who took money from the father and is now going after the son. She once thought AJ would eventually get tired of this game, but now she realizes she can no longer just stand by and watch. Her eyes narrow into a cold, determined glare, her resolve hardening like steel. The classmate's eyes scan the bustling cafeteria, searching for AJ. She spots him, but he's not alone. He's sitting with another girl named Claire. The sight sends a jolt through her, the ambient noise fading into a dull hum as her focus narrows on them. A slow, almost predatory smile forms on her lips as a plan crystallizes in her mind. With newfound purpose, she approaches their table, her presence casting a sudden chill. "Excuse me," she says, her voice steady and directed at Claire. "I wanted to have a word with you, senior." A warm memory flickers to life. The hopeful classmate looks up at AJ, her heart fluttering as she asks if he could help her out. But the image fades back to the present, where AJ sits across from Claire. She fidgets, explaining she didn't reply to his message because she was moving. She felt it was better that way since a man named Max kept following her, making her feel unsafe. AJ's expression darkens, a protective chill entering his eyes. He leans forward, his voice low and firm, asking Claire to tell him everything the guy did. Claire hesitates, a shadow of past hurt clouding her thoughts. She questions if AJ will believe her when so many others didn't. Sensing her turmoil, AJ offers a gentle smile, telling her not to worry if she doesn't want to talk. He says that simply being able to see her makes him happy. His sincerity is a warm current that washes over her, melting the ice around her heart. A soft blush rises to her cheeks. Looking into his kind eyes, she makes a decision. She tells him everything, and he listens quietly, seriously, giving her his full attention. A wave of anger radiates from AJ as Claire finishes her story. Under the table, his fist clenches tight. She apologizes for the heavy topic, but his eyes burn with a dark, protective fire. He thanks her for trusting him, his mind seething that the man responsible wouldn't have gotten away so lightly if he'd known sooner. The intensity makes her call his name uncertainly. He softens instantly. When she asks if he believes her, his "of course" is immediate. A warm blush blooms on her cheeks as she thanks him, her heart fluttering. He stands, suddenly needing to leave for something urgent, asking for her new building's name before he goes. A protective fury simmers in AJ as he stares at the rundown building. He can't fathom her living in such an unsafe place, completely exposed with no cameras or security. His dark irritation is almost a physical presence. When the landlady cheerfully asks if he's there to look at rooms, his gaze remains intense. After a brief pause, his solution is swift and absolute. He'll take them all. The woman freezes, her smile vanishing as she stares in utter disbelief, stammering to ask if he truly means every single one. Claire's eyes widen as she processes his offer. All of them, she asks, her hand covering her mouth in disbelief. She questions if he's truly serious about covering the entire cost. AJ's expression remains completely calm and steady. He confirms his offer is genuine, explaining he can pay in cash or transfer. A moment of silence hangs between them. Then, he looks at her intently. "But I have one request." The scene shifts, and the warm glow of the setting sun washes over the city, settling upon the building. The door to Claire's apartment swings open. She steps inside and freezes, her eyes wide with disbelief. This," she whispers, staring at the room. It's completely transformed with luxurious furniture, a sleek new bed, and a large TV. Everything is brand new. Utterly dumbfounded, she calls her landlady, who offers a flustered story about winning the lottery and redecorating all the rooms. Claire ends the call, still processing the unbelievable news. Sinking into the soft bed, she suddenly remembers her evening plans. AJ is coming to pick her up soon. With their date approaching, she stares into her closet, anxious about what to wear. She worries her choice might look tacky. Later, she greets AJ, who has just arrived. As they walk together, her self-consciousness grows with every silent step. "Do I look weird dressed like this today?" she finally asks, her voice timid. AJ stops and turns to her, his expression softening. "No, not at all," he replies. A gentle smile touches his lips as a faint blush warms his cheeks. "Cutie," he says, his voice low and sincere. "You look adorable no matter what." The sky melts from a warm sunset into a deep, star-filled night. Leaning against a sleek red sports car, AJ waits patiently. The soft click of heels on the pavement draws his attention, and he looks up. Claire approaches, her steps hesitant. She stops before him, a vision in a soft pink dress, her hair styled with delicate bows. A faint blush colors her cheeks as she finally meets his eyes, a shimmering light accentuating her features. "Sorry for keeping you waiting," she says softly, the air between them charged with anticipation. A soft blush dusts AJ's cheeks as his eyes trace her features. "Cutie, you look gorgeous," he says, his voice low as he gently takes her hand. She laughs, a light, happy sound. "Why'd you suddenly turn into such a gentleman?" she teases. Walking beside him, their hands intertwined, she glances at his sharp profile. "AJ, you look so mature today." A thought crystallizes between them. If this moment counts as a new beginning, then this is their first real date. Later, seated across from him in a private VIP room, she looks surprised. "It's on me," AJ insists. Her eyes narrow playfully as she warns him she'll get upset if he suggests splitting the bill. AJ takes the menu, his eyes locking with hers. "You're not allowed to order fried rice either," he says, a knowing smirk on his face. She's stunned. He read her mind perfectly. He orders for them both with an easy confidence that captivates her. Then, he mentions running into someone named Max and shows her his phone. On the screen, a man pleads for forgiveness, apologizing for edited photos and promising he cleared her name. Claire watches, sensing he looks more threatened than sorry. A soft smile touches her lips as an unexpected warmth spreads through her chest, a feeling of pure relief. Her cheeks flush as she shares her own good news. "Something really coincidental happened," she says, explaining her landlady won the lottery and completely redecorated her room. A bright smile spreads across her face as she admits it feels strange to have such good luck. AJ leans forward, a soft, knowing look in his eyes. "If you agree to date me now," he suggests smoothly, "maybe you'll get even luckier." She laughs playfully, teasing that she isn't so easy to win over. As the night deepens under a moonlit sky, someone else waits. Bare feet pace anxiously. Why are they taking so long? Claire stands in her room, arms crossed, her mind racing. She reflects on how much has already been invested in this risky connection. Just then, her phone vibrates on the bed, breaking the silence. She picks it up. Shouldn't there be some progress? AJ's voice is low and direct, a bold challenge that makes her breath catch in her throat. His words hang in the air, a spark of heat between them. Claire's face contorts with anger as she shouts into her phone, demanding an explanation. How could the money just be gone? The line suddenly goes dead, leaving her in stunned silence. "She hung up on me." Her voice trembles with a mix of rage and panic. "That was 200,000. Her hands shake as she tries to redial, but the call won't connect. A dark, horrifying possibility dawns on her as she questions why she can't reach the person. Rushing to her desk, she frantically begins typing, desperate to find an answer. Her frantic search confirms her worst fear. The account is on a blacklist. The word "scammed" echoes in her mind, a sickening realization. She slumps in her chair, hands buried in her hair, crushed by the weight of her debts. The collectors will be coming in days. Just as despair takes hold, a notification chime cuts through the silence. A message from a stranger. Hesitantly, she opens it. A photo appears, followed by a question. "Do you know the girl in this picture?" Her blood runs cold. She stares at the screen, paralyzed by sheer shock. Jenny gazes at her phone, a cunning smile playing on her lips. She wonders with cold curiosity what her mother will do next. Her thoughts are broken by her mother's voice from the other room calling. "Jenny, dinner's ready." Her expression instantly brightens as she cheerfully replies that she's coming. Later, at a dinner table laden with food, her mother asks about her progress with AJ. Jenny turns to him, her expression softening. With a gentle warmth in her voice, she says they are just taking things slow. A man in a crisp suit explains the business advantages of a family merger, noting how their hotel could be upgraded. He praises AJ, calling him smart since he was a kid. His daughter, with bright green eyes and a deep blush, insists her feelings are real. She tells her father that she genuinely likes AJ, and it has nothing to do with benefits. Her parents laugh, pleased. Elsewhere, Claire sits alone in a sunlit kitchen, a serene, confident smile gracing her lips. She knows the one most suited for AJ is her. Claire's eyes widen as she clutches her phone, the words from her mother echoing in her mind. Her family was scammed. Debt collectors are coming. Her mother's tone suddenly shifts, revealing a secret. She knows Claire is dating a wealthy man. The demand is sharp and desperate, borrow money from him. Just as the pressure becomes unbearable, a man's gentle voice cuts through her panic. He was getting worried. Forcing a smile, she turns to face him, confirming her call is finished. As he offers to walk her home, she hides her phone and agrees. Inside her apartment building, the woman's composure finally breaks. Her body goes limp, and she slumps against the closed door, sliding down to the cold floor in a heap. The facade she maintained crumbles into dust. Tears begin to stream from her bright eyes, carving wet paths down her cheeks as quiet sobs escape her lips. A desperate question echoes in her mind. Why is this happening to her? She clutches her head, overwhelmed by the crushing weight of it all. All she ever wanted was to live a good life. All she ever wanted was to have love, just like everyone else. With the weight of her family's debt pressing down on her, she walks with a heavy heart but a determined stride. Her heels click against the pavement as she makes her way through the city, stopping before a modern-looking building. Her eyes scan a flyer taped to the wall. It's an advertisement for a place called the X Bar, which is hiring staff. Her hand slowly reaches out, her gaze fixed on the details of the job posting. A memory surfaces, vivid and bright. Claire finds herself under a brilliant blue sky, a stark contrast to the shadows that usually follow her. Her expression is pensive, her mind drifting to a life she desperately yearns for, one filled with simple warmth and genuine connection. Words fail her as she contemplates the difficult path she is about to walk. The quiet hope for liberation feels like a faint warmth against her skin, a feeling she has almost forgotten, stirring a silent ache in her heart. As dusk settles over the city, she approaches her co-worker, Xiaosai, inside the quiet cafe. With a serious expression, she announces that she's quitting, having found a new job. Xiaosai looks surprised, asking if she has told their boss. Not yet, Claire admits, her voice low. She pauses, about to explain why, when Xiaosai's eyes suddenly widen in pure shock, her gaze fixed on something just past Claire's shoulder. But Claire doesn't turn. Her expression remains cold and unwavering, a silent intensity burning in her sharp eyes. Claire's hands tremble as she clutches her friend's, her voice breaking as she begs her not to tell AJ. Tears stream down her face, her eyes squeezed shut in despair as she admits she feels useless. The harsh moment melts away into a sun-drenched memory from AJ's birthday. They stroll along the beach, their fingers laced together as the ocean washes over their feet. He thanks her for the cake, and she explains she made it herself, knowing he dislikes overly sweet things. He stops, his voice soft as he says her name. On the sun-drenched shore, AJ shares a rare piece of his past. He explains this beach holds his happiest childhood memories, a place he usually visits alone. But today, he wanted to share its warmth with her. Her gentle gaze meets his, and he warns that such a look makes him want to deepen their connection. The question hangs in the salty air. "Can't you be my girlfriend yet?" A blush rises on her cheeks as she stammers, "Not yet." Her hesitation leaves the unspoken feelings lingering between them. The unspoken answer hangs in the air as AJ's intense gaze meets hers. He leans forward, closing the small space between them. Their lips touch gently, a soft connection that deepens under the warmth of the sun. Wrapped in his arms by the water's edge, the world melts away, leaving only the sound of the ocean and their shared breath. But the blissful moment shatters with a sudden jolt. The sun-drenched beach dissolves, and the endless blue sky is replaced by the stark, sterile ceiling of a modern room, pulling them back to reality. The memory of the beach dissolves, replaced by a reality just as intoxicating. AJ pulls her close, their gentle kiss deepening into something raw and passionate. Her eyes flutter closed, a soft blush spreading across her cheeks. The world blurs into a haze of sensation until she gasps his name, her voice trembling. He holds her securely, his whispered words sending a shiver of heat through her entire being. Overwhelmed, she bites her knuckle, a soft sound escaping her lips as his intense gaze watches her, waiting for her to completely unravel. A flicker of worry crosses her face. "What if someone sees us?" she asks, but AJ's voice is a low murmur, promising they are completely alone. His intense gaze meets hers as he whispers a dangerous promise, a challenge hanging in the heated air between them. Before she can process his words, the world tilts. A surprised gasp escapes her as the atmosphere shifts in a dizzying instant. Flushed and breathless, she looks up at him, his name a question on her lips. A wave of embarrassment and an undeniable warmth floods her senses. A breathless plea escapes her lips as she whispers that this is enough, that she can't take the intensity anymore. Her heart hammers against her ribs, a frantic rhythm of fear and desire. Panic flashes through her as she reminds him they are still outside, completely exposed. Her face flushes, a deep crimson blush coloring her cheeks as she calls his name, her voice trembling. A jolt of realization courses through her. The moment has taken on a life of its own. A single, brilliant eye belonging to AJ fixes on her, reflecting an unwavering determination. AJ's breath hitches, his eye widening in sheer disbelief as a name escapes his lips in a shocked cry. A single bead of sweat rolls down his heated skin, his focus entirely broken. Claire meets his gaze, her expression hardening with sudden, bold resolve. "Since we've come this far," she states, her voice firm despite the blush coloring her cheeks, "then I'll just..." Her unfinished sentence hangs in the air, a shocking promise that shatters his composure. "Wait," he calls out, his mind reeling. "Really?" His confusion is palpable as she takes the lead. The air grows thick and warm. A deep flush creeps up AJ's neck, his face heating as the intensity peaks. His breath hitches, and he looks away, his voice barely a whisper. "Claire," he stammers, "you don't have to." His heart thumps erratically against his ribs, a frantic rhythm only he can hear. Suddenly, his sharp eyes fly open, wide with shock and an overwhelming sensation. The carefully constructed walls of his plan crumble, leaving him vulnerable and completely captivated by the moment. The world softens into a haze of golden light, where sheer curtains dance on an unseen ocean breeze. Time seems to blur, the moments stretching into an endless blue sky, a dizzying ascent that leaves him breathless. Later, the scene shifts. Cool water cascades from a showerhead, steam filling the tiled space. The steady rush of water offers no relief, doing little to cool the heat still radiating through him. Every carefully laid plan is washed away in the torrent of this new, overwhelming reality. Under the warm spray, AJ gently cradles her head and suggests they take a break. He pulls back, a promise hanging in the steam as he says they should save the rest for when they are officially together. Her eyes well up, a single tear escaping as she's moved by his unexpected sincerity. Later, they lie together in a sunlit room. She breaks the quiet intimacy to ask about his background. After he answers, she reveals a vulnerability of her own, admitting she chose her major, hoping to one day find the father she lost as a child. AJ listens, his expression unreadable as she apologizes for talking so much on his birthday. He pulls her into a reassuring embrace, glad she felt she could tell him everything. When he offers to help find her dad, she quietly refuses. She explains that after meeting his father, her perspective changed. Memories surface of the father's apparent kindness, treating her to meals and giving her money. She confesses that she began to see him as a father figure. The mood shifts as AJ's face darkens. He dismisses his father's actions, telling her to rest. She settles into his embrace, feeling a profound warmth spread through her. The gentle sound of waves drifts into the room as Claire sleeps soundly in AJ's arms. He watches her peaceful expression, thinking about how tired she's been. A quiet resolve settles in his gaze. He can be patient. Time melts from day into night and back to morning. Standing in a sunlit parking lot, she apologizes for staying so long. AJ pulls her close, a small smile on his face. He gently teases her, saying she shouldn't worry. Sleeping well is important, after all. As she tells AJ to drive safe, he pauses. His feet pivot on the pavement, and in an instant, he turns back. He sweeps her into his arms, closing the space between them in a heated, passionate embrace. The world blurs into a sun-drenched haze, their hearts beating as one. A soft murmur escapes his lips against hers. "Cutie, I love you." After he leaves, she watches his red car drive away, a bittersweet smile on her face. The warmth fades, replaced by a sobering thought. It's time to return and face reality. Back in the cold, modern building, Claire tries to hide a yawn, but the father's sharp gaze misses nothing. He asks if she stayed up late, noting her constant tiredness. A nervous blush colors her cheeks as she lies, claiming she was simply reading. With a tone that feels more like a warning than a comfort, he tells her she needs to rest more or he'll worry. Her eyes widen in stunned silence. The air grows heavy as the bright day dissolves into a deep, starless night, trapping her in a cycle of silent observation. The city lights of the X-Bar glow against the night sky. Inside, a woman named Xiao Si takes an order for more wine before the sound of her own name stops her. She turns to see a man with dark hair and glasses waving warmly from a table. He playfully asks what she's doing here. She smiles, retorting that she came to see his new workplace. After she orders, the man's gaze softens as he turns to the woman beside him, Claire. "I'll be coming by here often now," he says, his voice full of promise. Claire responds with a warm, knowing smile. Weeks begin to blur together. A week after their meeting, the man asks Claire to dinner, but she politely declines, saying she has something to take care of. He tries again the following week, hoping to see her on the weekend, but she already has plans with Xiao Si. 3 weeks in, he reaches for her as she leaves, but she just apologizes and rushes away without looking back. Left standing alone, his friendly smile evaporates. His eyes narrow, a cold and intense fire burning within them as his patience finally wears thin. Inside the luxurious home gym, AJ runs on the treadmill, his breath coming in steady pants as he worries about Claire still being busy so late. His thoughts are cut short when his phone begins to ring. A warm smile instantly replaces his concern as he sees her name on the screen. He stops the machine and answers, his voice soft. "Are you done with work?" she asks. But his smile falters when her tone shifts. She tells him she wants to find an internship somewhere else, and the simple statement lands with a heavy, unspoken weight. Inside the X-Bar, a coworker calls out to Claire. Her coworker tells her that a VIP guest specifically asked for her by name. A wave of confusion washes over Claire's face, but she cautiously agrees and walks toward the private area. As she enters, her breath catches in her throat. Her wide, brilliant eyes lock with a pair of intense, familiar ones. The air grows thick, charged with an unspoken energy. It's AJ, his predatory gaze holding her captive from across the table. "What are you doing here?" Claire's voice trembles. Across the room, AJ lounges on a sofa, his calm completely unnerving as he crosses his arms. "That's what I should be asking you," he counters, his voice dangerously low. His intense, red-hued eyes narrow as he presses her for an explanation. Claire avoids his stare, stammering that she just switched jobs. "Then why didn't you tell me?" he asks, his tone sharp. "Why are you hiding from me?" The accusation hangs heavy in the air. "Are you still keeping something from me?" Her body jolts, shocked by his words. His name escapes her lips, a fragile plea. "AJ." Tears shimmer in Claire's eyes as she delivers the crushing words. She thinks they should take a break for a while. AJ's world seems to stop, his expression frozen in shock. As Claire turns to leave, another man steps in front of her, shoving AJ's shoulder. "That's enough," he commands, telling him to stop bothering her. AJ bristles, demanding to know what right he has to interfere. The man's gaze narrows, his voice low and pointed as he asks if AJ ever considered the real consequences of their separation. The man's voice cuts through the tension, demanding to know if AJ realizes how much pain he caused. A memory surfaces of Claire, miserable in her room, crying for days. He steps forward, pressing a finger into AJ's chest. He insists that her kindness is the only reason she ever spoke to him again. "If you're still a man," he pleads, his voice low and intense, "then let her go." He delivers the final blow, telling him to find someone better. AJ stands frozen, his eyes wide with shock as the man walks away. Thunder cracks across the sky as rain lashes against the windows, a storm mirroring the turmoil in AJ's heart. He slumps onto the couch, head in his hands, utterly defeated. A bitter, self-deprecating laugh escapes his lips. He knows he can't say a word in his own defense. The other man was right about everything. The person truly at fault is him. Leaning back, he lets out a shaky breath, a desperate warmth spreading through his chest as a single, painful thought surfaces. If only she were here right now. A knot of anxiety tightens in Claire's chest. She thinks of AJ, realizing it's been too long since they last spoke. Her calls go unanswered, her worried messages left without a reply. Panic begins to set in. What's going on with him? Suddenly, a frantic pounding shatters the silence at AJ's door. He turns, startled by the noise. "AJ, are you home?" Claire's desperate voice cries out from the other side, pleading for him to open up. A moment passes, and then the lock clicks, the door slowly creaking ajar. Claire rushes through the doorway, her voice tight with panic. "AJ, what happened?" she asks, her hands reaching for him. A single tear traces a path down her cheek as she tries to speak, but the words catch in her throat. AJ's expression darkens, his focus solely on her distress. He pulls her into a sudden, fierce embrace, a silent answer to her fear. As he holds her, the red phone slips from his grasp. It clatters onto the table, the screen shattering into a web of cracks, forgotten in the overwhelming intensity of the moment. The starlit sky casts a quiet glow over the sleek exterior of a local cafe. Inside the brightly lit shop, the atmosphere quickly shifts from routine to tense. Claire stands near the counter, her long blonde hair cascading over a simple uniform. She approaches her dark-haired coworker, Simai, her expression tight with lingering resolve. The casual, everyday setting contrasts sharply with the heavy weight of the conversation about to unfold, setting a serious tone as Claire prepares to make a sudden, life-altering change in her direction. Claire breaks the news, her voice steady but quiet as she reveals she will not be returning to work tomorrow. She admits to finding another part-time job, leaving Simai visibly stunned. The coworker's composure cracks, her eyes widening in disbelief as she asks if their boss knows about this sudden departure. Claire looks down, her striking blue eyes clouded with a complex mix of guilt and silent determination as she hesitates, preparing to navigate the uncomfortable fallout of her abrupt farewell. Desperation flashes across Simai's face. She reaches out, tightly gripping Claire's hands, pleading with her to keep the sudden departure a secret. The sheer weight of the request hangs heavily in the air. Claire's resolve wavers, the emotional toll of her recent struggles finally breaking through. Tears well up in her bright blue eyes, spilling over her pale cheeks. Her voice trembles as she confesses her deeper turmoil, admitting she simply cannot bear to feel pathetic anymore. The somber memory fades, replaced by the blinding, sunlit shores of a pristine beach on a special birthday. The vast blue sky stretches endlessly above as AJ and Claire stroll along the water's edge. They walk barefoot through the wet sand, their hands firmly intertwined. AJ stands tall, his muscular physique on full display, the signature crystal pendant resting against his chest. A quiet warmth softens his sharp features as he genuinely thanks her for the homemade cake, the tension of the past entirely washed away by the ocean breeze. A rare, genuine smile graces AJ's face as he looks out over the crashing waves. He shares cherished childhood memories of visiting this very beach with his father, explaining how it became his sanctuary whenever he felt lost. His dark eyes soften as he confesses he wanted to share this meaningful place with her. He gently apologizes for dragging Claire so far from home, but she gazes up at him with profound affection. Her warm smile reassures him entirely, deepening the undeniable bond forming between them. The gentle atmosphere takes a sudden, breathless turn. AJ stops, his gaze locking onto Claire with an intensity that leaves no room for escape. He boldly tells her how beautiful she looks, openly admitting his desire to kiss her. With the ocean breeze sweeping around them, he quietly asks if they can finally start dating again. Caught completely off guard by his directness, Claire's pale cheeks flush a deep crimson. She stammers, a mix of surprise and lingering hesitation causing her to softly deny him for the moment. Despite her hesitant words, the magnetic pull between them is undeniable. AJ's dark eyes observe every subtle shift in her expression, completely unwavering. He closes the distance, pulling her delicate frame against his broad chest. He leans in, capturing her lips in a deep, lingering kiss. The world around them seems to blur, the crashing waves fading into the background as their connection solidifies. It is a moment of pure, uninterrupted focus, his calculated charm blurring dangerously into genuine, undeniable desire beneath the bright afternoon sun. The sun-drenched shore gives way to the shadowed, secluded intimacy of a private beach cabana. AJ hovers above Claire on the plush cushions, his broad shoulders completely framing her delicate figure. The air thickens with unspoken heat as their embrace becomes far more urgent and passionate. Every deliberate movement pulls them deeper into the intoxicating moment. Claire's hands rest gently against him, entirely swept up in the overwhelming tide of his affection as the boundaries between revenge and genuine attraction meld away in the quiet isolation. The physical closeness becomes dizzying. Claire's breath catches softly, a sudden spike of self-consciousness piercing through the hazy atmosphere. She anxiously wonders out loud if anyone can see them. AJ's dark eyes gleam with possessive focus as he reassures her the entire place is rented out. He leans closer, his voice dropping to a heavy whisper as he suggests moving upstairs, warning her that his restraint is rapidly slipping. The tension stretches tight, vibrating with a heavy, magnetic energy that leaves Claire completely breathless. The overwhelming momentum hits a sudden wall. Panic fully sets in as Claire realizes the sheer audacity of their exposed location. She pushes gently against AJ's chest, her voice trembling slightly as she begs him to stop. Her flushed face turns away, overwhelmed by the dizzying escalation. When he continues to press forward, she makes a sudden, firm move, gripping him tightly to halt his advance. AJ freezes instantly, genuine surprise crossing his sharp features. He swallows hard, suspended in a moment of breathless anticipation as she takes control. Claire looks down, her bright blue eyes trembling with a mix of anxiety and intense anticipation. A heavy flush spreads across her pale cheeks as she takes in the undeniable physical signs of his desire. The quiet cabana amplifies the frantic beating of her heart. Slowly, she reaches out, her delicate fingers brushing against his chest as she softly confesses her own need to reciprocate the overwhelming feeling. Caught entirely off guard, AJ's breath hitches, his dark eyes widening as he weakly urges her to stop, completely at her mercy. The atmosphere thickens into an intoxicating haze as Claire completely surrenders to the moment. She leans in, closing the distance with a bold, devastating tenderness that shatters the remaining boundaries between them. A dark, complicated thought crosses her mind as the connection deepens, wondering about the twisted web she is entangled in. Above her, AJ completely unravels. His head falls back, ragged gasps escaping his lips as a deep flush consumes his sharp features, completely overwhelmed by the intense intimacy of the moment. The overwhelming intensity finally breaks, giving way to the steamy, quiet sanctuary of the shower. The rushing water washes away the lingering tension as AJ gently holds Claire close, his muscular frame shielding her. Despite the heavy heat still radiating between them, he draws a firm line. Looking down into her bright blue eyes, his expression is serious and unwavering. He strictly tells her that they will not cross that ultimate threshold again until they are officially back together, demanding a real commitment before taking the final step. The frantic energy of the afternoon mellows into a quiet, tender evening. Wrapped loosely in the soft bedsheets, Claire rests comfortably against AJ's chest. Curiosity gets the better of her, and she softly asks about his heritage. AJ's dark eyes soften as he reveals the truth about his mixed background, explaining that his relentless pursuit of foreign languages is tied to a deeply personal mission, finding the father he lost to divorce long ago. The vulnerable confession bridges the emotional gap between them, strengthening their fragile bond. The peaceful mood shifts subtly when Claire brings up the chairman, the very man AJ is plotting against. Unaware of the venomous truth, she speaks fondly of the older man, confessing how his financial support and guidance filled a void in her life, making him feel almost like a surrogate father. AJ's jaw tightens imperceptibly. A dark, complicated shadow passes over his gaze as he listens to her praise his own father. He quickly masks his burning resentment with a dismissive smirk, casually joking about the old man's nagging to change the subject. The heavy emotional toll of the day finally catches up with Claire. She nestles deeper into AJ's embrace, murmuring about the comforting warmth before her bright blue eyes flutter shut. AJ remains awake, his intense gaze softening as he watches her sleep soundly against his side. The silence of the room is broken only by her steady breathing. He reaches into his pocket, his fingers brushing against a small, hidden ring. A quiet, calculated resolve settles over him as he decides to save the crucial gift for their next encounter. The golden light of morning bathes the quiet parking lot as they stand beside AJ's sleek red sports car. The reality of their separate lives begins to creep back in. AJ gently brushes a strand of blonde hair from her face, apologizing for not staying the entire morning and teasingly telling her she needs more rest to grow. Claire playfully pouts, her cheeks puffing out in mock offense. The light-hearted banter momentarily chases away the looming shadows, preserving the sweet illusion of a perfect, normal romance. The playful mood melts into a lingering, heavy farewell. AJ pulls her in, capturing her lips in a deep, desperate kiss that speaks volumes of his growing attachment. As they break apart, he gazes into her eyes and softly confesses his love. Claire watches his car disappear down the street, waving with a gentle smile. But the moment he is out of sight, her expression shifts. The warmth drains from her face, replaced by a cold, sobering realization as the crushing weight of her reality finally sets in. The vibrant energy of a high-end bar serves as the backdrop for Claire's new reality. Exhaustion is evident as she stifles a heavy yawn, her late nights taking a visible toll. Simai chats with her, unaware of the approaching figure. Suddenly, AJ appears, effortlessly slipping into the role of a charming patron. Dressed sharply in a white shirt and tie, he flashes a disarming smile, casually asking if he can become a regular at her new workplace. Claire smiles softly, granting him permission to infiltrate this new corner of her life. But the fragile connection begins to splinter. Days turn into weeks, and a frustrating pattern emerges. Every time AJ reaches out for a date, Claire slips through his fingers with rehearsed apologies. Work, friends, sudden plans. The final rejection leaves him standing alone in the bright city plaza, her retreating figure shrinking in the distance. The charming facade shatters. AJ's eyes darken into a piercing, crimson glare, his jaw clenching as a dangerous, possessive rage simmers beneath the surface, furious at his sudden loss of control over his perfect revenge. The harsh reality of Claire's secret life is laid bare outside a sleek hotel. A stern woman hands her a meager envelope of cash, coldly reminding her that as a student, she only receives a small monthly allowance. The woman dismissively warns her never to be late again. Claire stands in silence, her head bowed in submission. The heavy weight of financial desperation settles over her delicate shoulders as she silently endures the humiliating exchange. Trapped in a difficult situation, she desperately wants to hide from the world. Walking away from the hotel, the crushing pressure threatens to suffocate her. Claire's breathing grows ragged, a deep, trembling sigh escaping her lips as the sun sets behind the city skyline. A dark knot of panic tightens in her chest at the terrifying thought of a debt collector exposing her reality. Her bright blue eyes fill with profound dread. She tightly clutches her shirt, making a desperate, silent vow that she can never let her secret be discovered, terrified of losing the fragile life she holds onto. Miles away, AJ pushes his muscular frame to the absolute limit on a treadmill, sweat glistening on his skin. He abruptly hits the stop button, the intense physical exertion failing to clear his restless mind. He grabs his red phone and dials Claire's number, his patience wearing dangerously thin. When she finally answers, his voice is tight with suspicion. He confronts her about the supposed internship she claimed to be doing, the sharp edge in his tone making it clear he no longer believes her rehearsed excuses. The scene shifts to the dimly lit, upscale interior of the X-Bar. Simi pulls Claire aside, informing her that a VIP customer specifically requested her presence at their table. Confusion flashes across Claire's face as she cautiously approaches the private booth. She freezes, her bright blue eyes widening in sheer disbelief. AJ sits casually on the plush sofa, his dark gaze fixed firmly on her. He flips her question back at her, demanding to know what she is doing working in a place like this. The confrontation instantly escalates. AJ rises to his feet, his towering frame casting an imposing shadow over her. Claire stammers, frantically trying to explain that she merely switched part-time jobs. But AJ sees right through the flimsy defense. His red eyes narrow with intense, possessive focus as he steps closer, demanding to know why she has been avoiding him. The walls close in on Claire. Tears well up in her eyes as she struggles to form an answer, completely cornered by his relentless, heavy interrogation. Before Claire can speak, a bespectacled senior steps firmly between them, physically shielding her from AJ's intense glare. He snaps at AJ, ordering him to stop meddling in her life. AJ's jaw tightens, issuing a dark warning for the older man to stay out of their business. But the senior holds his ground. He scoffs at AJ's arrogance, calling him utterly selfish. The air thickens with tension as the senior brings up the devastating day AJ ruthlessly broke Claire's heart, dragging the deep, unhealed scars of the past directly into the light. The senior refuses to back down, his words cutting through the air like a blade. He harshly reminds AJ of the weeks Claire spent entirely broken and weeping because of his cruelty. He rebukes AJ's sheer audacity to return and demand another chance, insisting Claire only tolerates him out of a foolishly kind heart. He delivers a final, crushing ultimatum. If AJ truly cares, he must walk away so she can find someone better. AJ stands frozen, his eyes widening slightly as the heavy, undeniable blow of guilt finally lands. A violent thunderstorm rages outside, lightning fracturing the night sky above his apartment. AJ sits alone in his dimly lit living room, the senior's harsh words echoing endlessly in his mind. The calculated, confident predator is completely gone, replaced by a hollow sense of defeat. A bitter, self-deprecating smirk crosses his sharp features. He leans back against the sofa, letting out a heavy breath. In the quiet darkness, he finally admits the ugly truth to himself. In this twisted web of manipulation and revenge, he is the worst person of all. Seeking any escape from his suffocating thoughts, AJ grabs his phone. He realizes it has been ages since he last checked in on his close friend, Zhu. He scrolls through their old, supportive messages, a sudden wave of unease washing over him. He dials the number, but the automated voice confirms it is completely unreachable. His texts asking if Zhu is sick remain unread. The unnatural silence from his usually dependable friend sends a sharp spike of anxiety through his already fragile and exhausted state of mind. Suddenly, a frantic pounding shatters the quiet apartment. AJ opens the door to find Jenny, completely distressed and sobbing uncontrollably. She grips his shirt, her voice breaking as she chokes out Zhu's name. The sheer terror in her eyes and the agonizing sorrow in her voice communicate a devastating reality before she can even finish her sentence. AJ's entire world stops. The shock hits him like a physical blow. His red phone slips from his grasp, clattering onto the floor and shattering into a web of cracks as the scene fades into heavy silence. The bright, warm smile of a blond young man contrasts sharply with the somber reality of the room. Zhu's portrait rests at the center of a traditional memorial altar, surrounded by an abundance of delicate pink and white flowers. The soft glow of the lighting casts long shadows, emphasizing the heavy, sorrowful atmosphere. The tragic confirmation of his sudden passing hangs in the quiet air, a devastating end to a cherished friendship that leaves behind only memories framed in mourning. Dressed in stark black mourning attire, AJ and Jenny stand before the floral altar. The crushing weight of the tragedy brings them to their knees. Jenny covers her face, her shoulders shaking as she sobs uncontrollably into her hands. Beside her, AJ is entirely consumed by grief. His head is bowed, his broad shoulders slumped in absolute defeat. The vibrant, calculating young man is completely stripped of his usual confidence, reduced to quiet devastation in the face of an irreversible loss. The emotional dam finally breaks. AJ tightly grips Jenny's trembling hand, seeking and offering a desperate anchor in the storm of their shared sorrow. Tears spill from his dark eyes, tracing heavy paths down his pale cheeks. His expression twists in pure agony as he breaks down, repeatedly whispering agonizing apologies into the empty air. The sheer depth of his regret and heartbreak pours out, completely overwhelmed by the crushing realization that he was entirely blind to his friend's silent suffering. As the rain pours relentlessly outside, Jenny tearfully reveals the hidden truth of Zhu's returning illness. Flashbacks of their carefree school days flash through AJ's mind, twisting his heart with bitter remorse. He remembers Zhu's supposed short breaks, realizing too late they were battles fought in secret. Unable to bear Jenny's self-blame, AJ pulls her into a sudden, fierce embrace. He holds her tightly against his chest, his voice thick with emotion as he desperately pleads with her to stop punishing herself. Still holding her close, AJ makes a solemn, unwavering vow to stay by her side until the very end. But the atmosphere suddenly shifts from shared mourning to something entirely unexpected. He pulls back slightly, his dark eyes locking onto hers with a sudden, piercing intensity. The heavy silence of the room is shattered as he boldly confesses his feelings, admitting he has liked her from the very beginning. Jenny freezes, her tear-filled eyes widening in absolute shock at the sudden revelation. The boundaries between comfort and desire blur in an instant. AJ reaches up, his large hand gently cupping Jenny's flushed cheek. He leans in closer, closing the distance until their faces are mere inches apart. The vulnerable sorrow in his dark eyes is replaced by a magnetic, undeniable resolve. He lowers his voice to a heavy whisper, confessing that he no longer wants to remain just a close friend. The sudden, intimate escalation leaves Jenny completely breathless and trapped in his gaze. The heavy, melancholic atmosphere shifts to a bright university classroom. Claire sits alone at her desk, staring down at her phone with a deeply troubled expression. It has been days since she last heard from AJ, and the silence is agonizing. She sends a hesitant, worried message, desperately hoping for a reply. However, her anxiety only deepens when a classmate casually mentions that AJ has already left the campus alongside Jenny, leaving Claire to grapple with a sinking feeling of isolation and doubt. Claire relocates to the bustling cafeteria, resting her chin on her hands with a heavy sigh. The senior with glasses approaches, taking the seat across from her. As Claire openly admits her growing worry over AJ's unexplained absence, the senior's eyes gleam with a calculated motive. Feigning casual concern, he drops a devastating rumor right in front of her. He claims to have heard that AJ is already seeing another girl, skillfully planting seeds of doubt and insecurity in Claire's fragile heart. A shocking flashback unveils the dark truth behind the senior's sudden intervention. Earlier, Jenny had secretly approached him with a manipulative proposition. Knowing the senior harbored a deep attraction for Claire, Jenny boldly asked for his help. She urged him to make a decisive move on Claire, a calculated strategy designed to eliminate her rival and secure AJ entirely for herself. The senior's knowing smirk in the present perfectly aligns with their twisted alliance, as the pieces of their deceptive trap fall into place. Seizing the manufactured opportunity, the senior reaches across the table and firmly grasps Claire's hand. He boldly confesses his feelings, promising to make her happier than AJ ever could. Claire looks entirely stunned by the sudden advance. Meanwhile, under the cover of night, a different kind of intensity unfolds. AJ speeds down an empty, illuminated highway on a sleek red motorcycle. The wind whips past him, his dark eyes burning with unresolved determination as he races toward an unknown, inevitable collision of fates. AJ sits astride the powerful machine, the engine humming beneath him. His face is a mask of cold resolve, his dark eyes narrowed with an intensity that mirrors the focused beam of his bike's headlight. The wind whips past him, but he remains perfectly still, a silent figure waiting under the vast, star-dusted sky, ready to spring his next calculated move. For long years pass in an instant. The scene shifts to a bright, bustling airport tarmac where a plane has just landed. Inside, a more mature, refined AJ sits alone, staring out the window with a look of quiet, unreadable contemplation. He has returned, but the passage of time has clearly reshaped him. The impulsive, fiery high school student is gone, replaced by a man who now carries the heavy weight of the past 4 years, his expression a careful blend of exhaustion and steely determination. Stepping off the plane, AJ is instantly recognizable, yet fundamentally changed. Dressed in a sharp, tailored suit, he exudes an aura of cool, confident authority. He slides a pair of dark sunglasses onto his face as his phone rings. Answering the call, he confirms his return, his voice low and steady. He casually instructs his contact to proceed as planned, a quiet command that hints at a larger, more intricate scheme already set in motion. The revenge plot is far from over, it has only evolved. AJ arrives at a sleek, modern office building, stepping into a spacious, sunlit room that overlooks the sprawling city below. He walks over to the large window, gazing out at the familiar skyline with a heavy, nostalgic expression. His mind drifts back to a painful memory, a time when he had to make a devastating choice. He recalls the quiet, heart-wrenching moment he told Claire he was leaving, the unresolved tension of their last conversation still hanging heavily in the air years later, fueling his determined return. The weight of the past becomes unbearable. AJ's carefully constructed composure cracks, his confident posture collapsing as he slumps against the cold glass of the window. He clutches his head, his face contorting in a mask of pure agony. The memories of his final, painful conversation with Claire flood his mind, the sharp sting of his own words echoing with renewed force. He is completely overwhelmed by the resurfacing grief and regret, the polished exterior of the successful man shattering to reveal the deep, unhealed wounds beneath. AJ's car speeds down the nighttime highway, a sleek red blur against the city lights. He pulls up to a modern, upscale apartment complex, his mission clear. Inside the car, a memory surfaces of a phone call where he finally learned the ugly truth. His father hadn't forgotten him at all. In fact, his father had been desperately trying to reach him, only to be blocked by the very people AJ had trusted. The devastating betrayal fuels his dark resolve as he steps out of the car, ready to confront the source of his pain. He makes his way to a specific apartment door, his steps heavy with purpose. He knocks firmly, and the door swings open to reveal a stunning blonde woman with striking red eyes. She looks surprised, calling him by an unfamiliar name. This is Jiren, his father's new partner and the central target of his long-gestating revenge. Her warm, inviting smile is met with AJ's cold, calculating gaze. The first move in his elaborate, dangerous game has officially been made. Inside the luxurious apartment, AJ calmly observes his surroundings, noting the framed photos of his father with Jiren. He explains that his father sent him, a simple lie to gain her trust. As they talk, a subtle, flirty energy begins to build between them. Jiren playfully teases him, commenting on how much he has grown. AJ leans in closer, his voice dropping to a seductive whisper as he tells her she has become even more beautiful. The air thickens, charged with a dangerous, unspoken tension. The night ends with AJ waiting outside. Jiren emerges, and he hands her a single, perfect red rose. He confesses that he has been thinking of her constantly, his words laced with a practiced, devastating charm. He leans in for a soft, lingering kiss, a carefully orchestrated move designed to seal his place in her heart. Jiren is completely swept away, utterly captivated by his sudden, romantic advance. The first phase of his revenge is a resounding success, his trap perfectly laid. Time rewinds, taking us back to the immediate aftermath of AJ's sudden departure 4 years ago. A devastated Claire sits alone on a quiet, sun-drenched beach, the waves crashing gently at her feet. The peaceful scenery contrasts sharply with the silent turmoil etched on her pale features. She looks out at the endless ocean, her bright blue eyes clouded with a deep, lingering sorrow. She softly whispers a different name into the wind. Lucas. A quiet acknowledgement of the man who has stepped in to fill the painful void AJ left. The sleek yellow car pulls to a halt at a red light. Inside, an awkward silence hangs between AJ and the girlfriend. He breaks the quiet, turning to her. "Do you really like the ocean that much?" he asks softly. Startled from her reverie, she turns away, a hint of sorrow in her expression. "Yeah, I am sorry," she admits. "I keep spacing out." AJ softens with a deep, unreadable intensity. "It is okay. I understand," he reassures her. As he studies her, the traffic light turns green, but the unspoken feelings linger heavily. The yellow car pulls up to a restaurant with a private room waiting. Inside, the meal is an elaborate feast. He offers her a bite, and her blue eyes widen with delight. It is delicious. Though she smiles and enjoys the food, her mind drifts into a quiet, shadowed place. She recalls a gentle man named Lucas, who showed her kindness and stayed by her side. She acknowledges he is a good person, someone she should be open to. But a stark, unshakable truth echoes in her thoughts. She just does not like him. Suddenly, a voice calls out, "Claire," snapping her back to reality. Lucas explains that he called her name because she was spacing out again. She quickly apologizes, her gaze falling. He offers a gentle smile, telling her it is fine. "Whatever you are thinking about, you are with me right now," he says, adding that he is genuinely happy she accepted his invitation. But even his warmth cannot reach her. As she leaves, her thoughts swirl. She wonders if she will ever be able to open her heart to him. Alone in her room, she collapses onto her bed, distressed. Her phone displays a lonely message, one of many she sends every day to a person named Jill, who has disappeared. Lying on her bed, the girlfriend lets out a heavy sigh. Sending messages to Jill has become a daily ritual, like writing in a diary, even though he has never once replied. Her mind drifts back 4 years, replaying a desperate memory of chasing down a friend to ask where Jill was. She needed to talk to him, but the answer crushed her spirit. He had gone abroad to study and likely would not be back for a long, long time. Back in the present, she tries to let it go. If he wanted to reach out, he would have. Her mind screams for this to stop, but she is lost in the moment. As the connection deepens, a different name escapes her lips in a breathless whisper. "Jill?" The moment shatters. AJ freezes, his expression hardening as he looks down at her. "Claire," he says, his voice dangerously low. "Are you going to betray me?" He grips her face, forcing her to meet his intense gaze. "Remember this. You are mine." The world around them dissolves into a starry sky, the entire cosmos reflected in her wide, dazed eyes. The girlfriend jolts awake in bed, a deep blush coloring her cheeks as she shivers. A deeply romantic dream about Jill has invaded her thoughts again, leaving her clutching the sheets in frustration. How can she ever move on? Meanwhile, in an office at the Golda Grand Hotel, Jill rubs his weary eyes, buried in his work. A concerned older man suggests a break, but Jill waves it off. The man watches him, silently hoping he does not end up like his father. Later, her phone rings. It is Jill. He asks if Siren is free, and she confirms she is. "Then I will be there soon," he says. A deep sadness hangs over AJ, and the girlfriend gently asks what is on his mind. His voice is low as he speaks of a friend, Ju, the one he used to confide in. A wave of empathy inspires a sweet, if slightly odd, idea. She holds up a photo of Ju, offering to be a stand-in for AJ to talk to. A blush creeps up her neck as she worries he will think her strange. But his expression softens, a flicker of a smile on his lips as he realizes she truly is a lot like the friend he misses. A cloud of uncertainty hangs over AJ as he sits at the table, lost in his thoughts. He wonders if he should forget everything and move on, or risk seeing a woman from his past named Claire. The fear paralyzes him. What if she is with someone else now? As if reading his mind, the girlfriend channels his old friend, telling him to just find out. She insists Claire might be waiting for him. Her words strike a chord, and a genuine, grateful smile touches AJ's lips. "Thanks, Siren," he says softly, a new resolve in his eyes as he stands and walks out the door. As AJ departs, a single tear rolls down the girlfriend's cheek. She stares at the empty space, consumed by a single, desperate thought. She did the right thing, did she not? Elsewhere, AJ sits alone, phone clutched tightly in his hand. He lets out a shaky breath, amazed that even after 4 years, he still remembers her number. His heart pounds against his ribs as he raises the phone to his ear. A voice answers, asking who this is. A tear escapes his eye as he finally speaks her name. Claire, it is me. Under a canopy of stars, AJ spots her. He calls out her name, Claire, and his voice is thick with emotion. She turns, her eyes wide with disbelief. They walk towards each other, the distance shrinking with every step until he pulls her into a desperate embrace. She clutches him, demanding to know where he has been. He apologizes, promising to explain, but their reunion is cut short. Another man, Lucas, appears, asking if AJ is her boyfriend. In a flurry of confusion, she shouts, "No," just as AJ firmly declares, "Yes." As Lucas reaches out, his voice echoes her name. Claire, wait, but his plea goes unheard. AJ firmly takes her hand, leading her away from the tense confrontation and into the quiet of the night. They arrive at a hotel room, the unspoken questions hanging between them. AJ needs to know about the other man, asking if he was her boyfriend. Claire quietly denies it, admitting she does not feel that way about him. She then looks at AJ, her gaze searching. With no calls and no texts, she asks why he has suddenly reappeared. A shadow crosses AJ's face, his crimson eyes heavy with unspoken emotions. Her blue eyes lock onto his, demanding he tell her everything that happened. AJ's heart aches as he looks at her. He can feel the immense weight she has been carrying. He lowers his head and quietly gives her permission to unleash her frustration. Her hand connects sharply with his cheek, with tears in her eyes. She calls his actions selfish, telling him she will never forgive him for making her wait 4 whole years. But her anger gives way, and her hand softens against his skin. AJ cannot suppress a smile, simply happy to be there, until his expression turns grim. He asks if she remembers their last fight. 4 years ago, AJ's voice is low, filled with a heavy sorrow as he sits beside the girlfriend. He asks if she remembers their last fight, explaining that afterward, he received devastating news. Lost in shock, he shut himself away, spiraling into self-blame. A dark, cruel voice began to echo in his mind, telling him he ruined everything and that everyone would be happier if he were gone. Unable to bear it, he sped out on his motorcycle to see her, only to crash. Lying in the hospital, he accepted an offer to go abroad, hoping one day he would be okay. AJ admits he was wrong to think leaving would fix anything. The girlfriend looks at him, her blue eyes wide with surprise. Covering his face, AJ confesses he could not forget her, that the memories spun in his head constantly. He sits beside her on the bed, head bowed as he apologizes for disappearing without a word, offering no excuse. She lets out a soft, trembling breath. He looks at her with an intense, pained gaze, but she cuts him off. She knows everything, how he remodeled her room, secretly paid her rent, and even cleared her mother's debts. A sharp-tongued woman corners AJ, suggesting they would be a perfect match due to their similar family status. Her tone quickly turns venomous as she questions his choice in women, dismissing his interest as someone who is not rich or famous. AJ's expression darkens instantly. He explodes with fury, demanding to know how she knows anything about Claire's private life. He grabs her, his crimson eyes blazing as he shouts that Claire barely ever uses social media. A dark, manipulative smile curls his lips as he leans in, asking if her own followers know what she does behind the scenes. The woman collapses to her knees, trembling as she begs someone named Jill not to expose her, promising to reveal everything. Back with AJ, the girlfriend looks at him with newfound clarity, admitting it was just too hard to say it all herself. Yet, a shadow of pain crosses her face. "It has been 4 whole years," she says, her voice thick with emotion as she asks what he would have done if she had been with someone else. A gentle, knowing smile plays on AJ's lips. "Claire," he says softly, reaching out to stroke her hair. He apologizes, confessing he had already prepared himself for that possibility. Tears stream down the girlfriend's face as she confesses her shame, admitting she was too embarrassed to tell him about her debt. AJ holds her tenderly, a soft, understanding smile on his lips. He reassures her that everyone makes mistakes and that she should not dwell on the past. Gazing up at him, she asks what they should do now. He pulls her into a warm embrace, suggesting they take it slow and think things through, promising to respect her final decision. The scene fades, and she later awakens in a hotel room, nestled safely in his arms. The girlfriend carefully tries to slip out of his embrace, but AJ's eyes snap open. "Where are you going?" he murmurs. Startled, she explains she is just heading to the bathroom and tells him to get more sleep. But he stops her, admitting he is not tired and that rest does not come easily for him, even with help. A soft, understanding smile crosses her lips as she promises to be right back. He watches her walk away, and in an instant, the gentle expression on his face hardens, an intense, cold glint in his crimson eye. The door creaks open, revealing the girlfriend, who gasps when she sees AJ standing there. "You startled me," she says, her voice soft as she asks if he was waiting. Without a word, AJ closes the distance between them. He suddenly pulls her into a desperate, tight embrace, burying his face in the crook of her neck. Stunned, she can only ask what is wrong. His body trembles against hers, his voice thick with an unguarded vulnerability as he confesses his love, pleading for her not to leave. Softening, she agrees, but gently asks him to let her go first. AJ flinches back, covering his face as a wave of regret washes over him. He stammers a desperate apology, his voice thick with shame, insisting he did not mean for this to happen. But the girlfriend is not upset. Her expression is pure tenderness as she tells him it is okay. She gently cups his cheek, her touch calming the storm inside him. With a soft smile, she suggests they rest for a bit, whispering the one word that changes everything: together. The world outside fades as their connection deepens, until a pink phone buzzes, threatening to shatter their peace. The phone screen glows with another man's name. Jill reaches for it, but AJ, fresh from a shower with a towel slung low on his hips, tells her it is fine to take it. He admits he was awake all night, his tired eyes betraying his tough facade. Sitting on the bed beside her, his tone shifts. He confesses to hanging up on the man's earlier call so she could sleep. An edge of jealousy enters his voice as he asks how close she got to him, demanding she compare them. Flustered, Jill stammers that they have never crossed that boundary. But AJ silences her with a gentle touch to her lips. "I do not care," he says, before pulling her into a deep, possessive kiss. The fiery passion of their kiss melts away as AJ pulls back, his intense gaze suddenly clouded with a deep, unexpected sorrow. To the girlfriend's shock, a single tear cuts a path down his cheek. He turns from her, his strong shoulders trembling as he kneels on the bed. With a broken voice, he apologizes for his jealousy, pleading with her not to hate him for it. Completely bewildered, she can only stare at his shaking form. His vulnerability is a stark contrast to his earlier possessiveness, leaving her to wonder what is truly going on inside his heart. The girlfriend's arms wrap around AJ, pulling him into a soft embrace. "I do not hate you," she whispers, her hands resting gently on his back. Hope flickers in his eyes as he asks if she really means it. She confirms with a small smile, even as she wonders why she is now the one comforting him. Later, they stand in a parking garage beside a red sports car. AJ asks if he can see her again, and she readily agrees. He then mentions getting his phone fixed and making a new ID, causing her to look at him with deep concern. Standing in the parking garage, AJ offers to take her home, his gaze hopeful. The girlfriend gently declines, explaining she has something to do nearby. He watches her walk away, a small, private smile playing on his lips as she gives a final wave. Alone with his thoughts, AJ touches the bridge of his nose, a smirk spreading across his face as he scolds himself for getting so obviously flustered. Later, as the girlfriend approaches a cafe, her phone buzzes. A heavy sigh escapes her as she answers a call from a man named Lucas. A silver-haired man approaches the girlfriend, his face a mask of concern. He asks if she is okay after yesterday, his voice laced with anxiety. He grips her hand tightly, confessing how terribly worried he was when he saw her leave with a stranger. Visibly flustered by the contact, she assures him she is fine and gently asks him to let go. Looking away, she decides on a difficult lie. "He is not just some stranger," she says softly. "He is my ex-boyfriend." The words strike the man, his expression darkening as the lie settles. He looks at her with raw hurt, his feelings laid bare. "I will not ask what you did," he says, his voice heavy with emotion. "But my feelings for you were never a joke." Lucas gently holds the girlfriend's face, his expression pained. He tells her he understands if her heart wavers for an old flame after so long, but he pleads for her to look at him, the one who was by her side. As a memory of AJ flashes through her mind, a moment of closeness, she feels cursed. No matter how hard she tries to open her heart to someone new, it only shuts tighter. Steeling herself, she thanks Lucas for everything, but confesses she has never seen him as more than a friend. He stands stunned as she walks away. A soft smile graces the dark-haired man's lips as he thanks Siren for helping him see Claire again. When she asks if they are getting back together, a flicker of sadness crosses his face. He admits there is another man involved, but he still hopes Claire will give him a chance. Siren notices the profound shift in his eyes when he speaks of his love, a look she has never seen before. She hands him a simple drawing from a dear friend. It is a tender sketch of him and Claire. Overwhelmed with emotion, he pulls Siren into a sudden, tight embrace, whispering his thanks. She stands frozen, her eyes wide with shock. Her eyes shimmer with unshed tears. Looking up at the man holding her, she whispers a final, heartfelt wish for his happiness. The moment fades, dissolving into a clear, bright blue sky. Elsewhere, AJ sits alone at a table, his gaze fixed on his phone. A heavy sigh escapes his lips, his expression one of weary resignation. His screen suddenly illuminates as his phone vibrates. A cascade of messages from the girlfriend fills the display, each one more desperate than the last, pleading for him to respond. Her final text hangs in the air. "I miss you so much." A dark-haired man sits alone, staring at his phone as a stream of old, unanswered messages paints a picture of a love left waiting, a past that still haunts him. With a heavy heart, he walks away. Elsewhere, the girlfriend sits across from a man with white hair, her voice soft but firm. "I cannot date you," she explains, her feelings for another unchanged. The man's face twists in disbelief, unable to grasp why she would choose someone who reappeared just once after 4 years. She admits this other man is not perfect, that he caused her immense pain. But as memories of sorrow flash through her mind, her conclusion is unwavering. "I still like him," she confesses, meeting his gaze. "You can blame me if you want." The white-haired man rises from his chair and walks away, leaving the girlfriend alone with her decision. A heavy sigh escapes her lips. She knows her choice is risky, her future with him uncertain, but she refuses to hesitate and be haunted by regret again. Suddenly, her phone buzzes. It is AJ. His voice is calm as he offers her a ride. She stammers, shocked, as he coolly informs her he is already there. He then delivers the final blow. He read every message she ever sent. Gripping the phone, she breathes. "What did you say?" The girlfriend waits on a park bench until AJ's polished shoes step into her view. He asks if she waited long. Standing before her, he learns she is free for the evening, and a sly smile plays on his lips. He reveals he has made a reservation at a special place nearby he wants to share with her. The scene shifts to a breathtaking ocean view at sunset. They sit together on a patio couch. "Do you remember?" he asks softly. A blush warms her cheeks as she recalls they visited for his birthday. A tender memory surfaces, them walking hand in hand along the shore. She tells him she is happy he remembered, her heart fluttering. AJ clears his throat, his gaze turning serious as he leans closer. He asks if she read all the messages he sent. A faint smirk plays on his lips as he confirms he read everything, especially the desires she confessed. Her eyes widen, a deep blush coloring her cheeks as she is left completely speechless. "Claire," he says, his voice suddenly soft and earnest. His crimson eyes lock onto hers, filled with a raw vulnerability. "Can you choose me?" Her heart pounds in her chest. He confesses he is being selfish, but begs her, pleading to just be by her side. Her heart thunders in her chest as she accepts her own feelings. She thinks to herself that she is selfish, too, because her heart has chosen AJ, the one who just reappeared in her life. She cannot deny it anymore. The scene gives way to a moonlit room, the world outside completely forgotten. They come together in a deep, profound embrace, their connection undeniable. She gasps, reminding him he promised to be slow. "I am taking it slow," he murmurs, his crimson eyes smoldering with a deep affection. Lying together, she softly asks if he plans to eat. The tender atmosphere shatters when he whispers about his father, and the reality of their secret relationship flashes in her wide, panicked eyes. This pushes her to a decision. She resigns from her job, and as she walks away, a voice calls out her name. "Claire." Her mind drifts back, recalling the chairman's kind words, his wish to make her family. His comfort was a bittersweet ache, a reminder of a life she thought was out of reach. She never believed this could happen. But now, wrapped in AJ's close embrace, his closeness feels like a different kind of promise. Her heart pounds as she gazes into his intense eyes, wanting to believe in this new reality. As his thumb gently traces her lip, a quiet thought settles within him. He is falling for Jill all over again. In the quiet of the room, she leans back against the pillows, a soft gasp escaping her lips. AJ leans over her, his touch both tender and intense, leaving a feeling of warmth across her skin. Lost in a haze of sensation, her mind struggles to keep up. Her own name, Jill, echoes in her thoughts as her entire body trembles uncontrollably. A dizzying question rises through the overwhelming emotion, a whisper of disbelief. How can he know her so well, as if he understands every secret her heart holds? It is an impossible, breathtaking closeness. Her thoughts are a whirlwind of sensation. Starry night melts away, giving way to the brilliant blue of a new morning. Sunlight streams into the room where the girlfriend slowly awakens, a faint blush still warm on her cheeks. She sits up, wincing as a sharp ache radiates through her back. A memory of the previous night's profound connection flickers in her mind, and she thinks about how deeply he cared. Looking around the quiet room, a hopeful expression crosses her face. "Honey," she calls out, her bright blue eyes searching the empty space with a mix of longing and uncertainty. The girlfriend wakes and steps barefoot onto the cool floor, only to find AJ already there, waiting for her. His robe hangs loosely around his sculpted frame as he gently cups her face. He asks softly if she slept well and if she is hungry. Her blue eyes widen, sparkling with an emotion too pure for words. This dreamlike reality feels impossible. Her heart thumps against her ribs as she quietly agrees. He takes her hand, lacing his fingers through hers as they walk from the room, and a wave of absolute happiness washes over her. A lavish feast covers the entire table, a breathtaking spread just for her. She murmurs that it is far too much, but AJ simply smiles, reminding her that she missed dinner. He lifts a fork to her lips, offering her the first bite. A delicate blush warms her cheeks as she closes her eyes, savoring the delicious taste. Watching her, AJ's heart softens. She is just so cute. His gaze becomes earnest as he promises to protect her, no matter what anyone says. He tells her she can rely on him for anything, then speaks her name, Jill. A delicate blush warms her cheeks as she tells him he does not have to do all this. Her eyes then sparkle with newfound joy, and a radiant smile spreads across her face. She suggests they take care of each other, before whispering the words she can hardly believe are real. "We are lovers." Her hand instinctively covers her chest, feeling the rapid thump of her heart. It is the only thing convincing her this is not all a wonderful dream. This warmth is a stark contrast to her past, a lifetime of unhappiness, shunned by her own mother and tormented by peers. AJ offers to call the chef if she would like something different, but Jill, flustered, insists she is already full. He playfully suggests clearing the expensive spread, but she knows he does not mind the cost. A wave of emotion washes over her. This small luxury feels immense compared to the misery she once knew. A serene smile graces her lips as she thinks about how much this new life matters. Suddenly, AJ stands, announcing he needs to get his medicine. Concern flashes in her eyes, but he just tells her it is nothing before stepping away, leaving her bathed in a golden glow of happiness. Please, she thinks, let it stay like this. AJ wraps his arms around the girlfriend from behind, their legs dipping into the sun-drenched pool. He murmurs that he has to leave for a client, and her heart sinks at the thought of a month apart. Still, she promises to endure it. His touch sends a shiver through her as he changes the subject, weaving a tale about a friend's younger sister. Her sadness vanishes, replaced by pure excitement. Eager to impress, she plans to cook for the girl, and his sweet praise makes her giggle, lost in the moment. A week later, a flashy red car pulls up. A brilliant red car pulls to a stop. A young woman with flowing blonde hair steps onto the curb, looking around with a hint of nervousness. AJ places a reassuring hand on the girlfriend's shoulder, telling her that their guest must be inside. As they approach the house, her thoughts drift away, lost in a memory. She pictures AJ standing before her, his sunglasses removed, a soft smile playing on his lips. He had arrived earlier than she thought. Bathed in a warm, pink light. She remembers the pure happiness of that moment, her heart overflowing. She watches AJ and the other woman share a playful moment. A sudden, quiet understanding blossoms within her as she looks at them side by side. For the first time, she truly grasps what people mean when they say two people just look good together. Before the thought can fully settle, AJ turns to her, a soft smile playing on his lips. He murmurs that they should recharge for a second. He steps forward, pulling her into a warm, encompassing embrace. As his arms tighten around her, a wave of new feeling washes over her. So this is what it feels like, she thinks. The girlfriend mentions she was just about to head to the market for seasonings. AJ immediately offers to go with her, but she gently urges him to rest, concerned about his long journey. He insists he is fine, but instead of joining her, he turns his gaze to the other woman. He suggests that she go along instead. Her friend's initial surprise blossoms into bright-eyed delight as she eagerly accepts. As they start to leave, AJ calls out, holding his card out to them. "Use this to pay," he says, watching them go. As the girlfriend and her companion search the market aisles, a man with white hair suddenly calls out her name. "Claire." She turns, startled, as he approaches with a pained expression. "Lucas," she murmurs. He asks if they can talk, but she immediately puts up a wall, telling him it is best they keep their distance. Hurt fills his eyes as she asks if the time they spent together meant nothing. While her friend gawks at the tense scene, she realizes with a jolt that there is another man who likes Claire. "Stop it." Claire's voice is sharp, cutting through the tension in the market aisle. She quickly tells her friend to go on ahead, promising to catch up. As Claire turns to leave, Lucas calls out, pleading for her to wait. Suddenly, her friend steps between them, holding out a hand to block his path. "Could you stop already?" she demands. Lucas glares down at her. "And who are you?" he asks. Flustered, she stammers a tangled lie about being the little sister of Claire's boyfriend. Unconvinced, Lucas ignores her and directs his question back to Claire. "Can we talk for a moment?" The tense air of the supermarket aisle fades, replaced by the quiet melancholy of an outdoor cafe. Lucas sits opposite Claire's friend, his shoulders slumped in defeat. His voice is thick with sorrow as he asks why Claire left him, why she returned to another when he could have given her everything. With a sympathetic gaze, her friend offers a gentle theory. She suggests love is not always simple, musing that perhaps an unavoidable event forced them apart years ago, not a change of heart. As Lucas quietly processes this, the scene cuts to a car driving at night. AJ stares ahead, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, a single thought echoing in his mind. "Honestly, I did not want to admit it." A bitter laugh escapes Lucas. He slumps forward, admitting to himself that he lost this game from the very beginning. A memory flashes through his mind, Claire walking away from him on a sandy beach, a final, silent rejection. Across the table, her friend offers a gentle reassurance, telling him he did his best. The friend's own eyes fill with tears as she apologizes for overstepping, yet still offers words of encouragement. Her genuine kindness surprises him, a strange and unexpected comfort. As she turns to leave, his voice cuts through the air. "Wait a second." As the girlfriend begins to walk away, AJ's voice cuts through the air, pleading for her to wait. A gentle floral background blooms around him as he offers a heartfelt apology for his previous rudeness, insisting he pay for her things. She waves it off with a gentle smile, telling him not to worry. Inside the store, his resolve holds firm. Just as she reaches the counter, AJ steps in, handing his own card to the cashier. He looks away, flustered, explaining that he felt like he owed her. She sighs, her expression unreadable. They step out of the store, the previous tension melting away as they walk side by side. But their quiet moment is suddenly interrupted. From a distance, a man with striking silver hair spots them, his eyes widening in disbelief. Her name falls from his lips in a strained whisper. His intense, violet gaze remains fixed on her, a tempest of confusion and concern swirling within him as he watches her walk away with an unfamiliar man. A new, unexpected complication has just entered AJ's calculated game. A warm, pleasant dinner unfolds. A guest praises AJ's incredible cooking, exclaiming he could open his own restaurant. The girlfriend, Siren, is thanked for arranging the reunion, and she responds with a dazzling, radiant smile. The friendly atmosphere shifts when a silver-haired man offers her a perfect score. On a company internship, a possessive shadow crosses AJ's face as he watches them. "That is cheating," he mutters under his breath, his eyes narrowed at the man's blatant attempt to win her over. A month later, the girlfriend arrives at a modern home, suitcase in hand. A profound reluctance weighs on her. She never thought she would return to this place. Suddenly, AJ embraces her from behind, his voice a soft murmur as he leads her inside. But they are not alone. A stern-faced older man is waiting for them. "You are here," he states. AJ freezes, his voice catching in his throat. "Grandpa," he exclaims, completely stunned. His grandfather explains he grew tired of waiting and came to finally meet the woman he has heard so much about. A blush creeps up AJ's neck as the girlfriend asks if he got into a fight. He tries to laugh it off, but his grandfather's request cuts through the moment. He wants to speak with her alone. A wave of protest rises in AJ, but her gentle hand on his arm and soft reassurances silence him. 10 minutes, he promises, his touch tender on her hair. "I will be waiting." Alone with the older man, she listens as he observes their deep connection, remarking that things might have been different if he had only known. A heavy silence hangs in the room as AJ's grandfather confesses his deepest fears. He admits his concern was not just for his grandson's health, but the crushing thought that she, too, might leave, just as his own son once did. He then commends her, saying she has endured so much. With his request for her to take good care of AJ, the mood lightens, but only for a moment. He turns away, mentioning his retirement in a few years. An old man gets lonely, he muses, and supposes he can look after about 5 grandchildren. The girlfriend's world stops, her eyes wide with disbelief. 5. A faint blush dusts AJ's cheeks as he pouts, pressing the girlfriend for details about her conversation with his grandfather. Visibly flustered, she looks away, gently rebuffing his question. "I told you." "Not yet," she murmurs. He sighs in frustration but quickly shifts his focus, a clever idea sparking in his eyes. He suggests they spend the next 2 days having fun, noting that his grandfather wanted them to spend time together. When she hesitates, unsure of where to go, AJ's entire demeanor changes. A wide, cheerful smile spreads across his face. "I already planned everything." He asks with a playful grin if she still has that outfit. High above the world in a Ferris wheel car, the girlfriend marvels at the view with childlike wonder. A soft, fond smile plays on AJ's lips as he watches her. He pats the seat beside him, drawing her close. The school uniforms stir a deep nostalgia, and he murmurs that it reminds him of the past. But for AJ, the memory is bittersweet. Regret clouds his features as he laments a foolish mistake from long ago. Unaware of his inner turmoil, she leans into his embrace, whispering that she only wants to make good memories together now. AJ's heart swells with a new, powerful resolve as he gazes at Claire. He leans forward, his lips meeting hers in a soft, meaningful kiss as they sit high above the world. A silent promise echoes in his mind. He will make her happy, no matter the cost. His only condition is that she stays by his side. When the ride gently docks, she steps out with a bright smile, telling him it was her first time on a Ferris wheel. Touched by her simple joy, AJ suggests they come back again soon. A fleeting memory washes over Claire, a little girl's plea for a beautiful dress, a mother's kind smile. AJ's voice gently pulls her from the reverie. He asks what caught her attention, and she looks away with a wistful sigh, confessing she always yearned for dresses like that as a child, a dream she could never have. A slow, meaningful smile touches AJ's lips. He asks if she would like to visit the past, just once. Suddenly, the world transforms. A camera shutter clicks, and Claire stands resplendent in a magnificent gown, her childhood fantasy brought to life. She marvels at AJ, dressed handsomely in a matching princely outfit. It must be for her, she thinks, so she will not feel embarrassed alone. At the photographer's request for a sweeter pose, AJ pulls her in for a tender kiss on the forehead. He then leans close, whispering for her to kiss him. She shyly mentions the camera, but he tells her to simply let it film. Her heart pounds as she grips his sleeve, and he sweeps her into a deep, passionate embrace as doves take flight, sealing their fairy tale moment. The sun sets in a brilliant wash of orange and gold over the quiet house. Inside, warm water cascades over Claire as she showers, a soft smile playing on her lips. She replays their perfect date, her heart fluttering with the thought that this is their first real evening together. The bathroom door creaks open, pulling her from her reverie. AJ leans against the frame, calling her name in a low, familiar tone. The look in his eyes, the confident vibe, It all feels like a sudden echo of a past moment. He smirks, suggesting they share this memory. Water cascades down from the shower head as AJ holds the girlfriend in a close, warm embrace. A faint blush colors her cheeks as a strange feeling of déjà vu washes over her. He whispers that he never imagined they would end up together, that this moment feels like a dream. The words strike her as incredibly familiar, something he has said before. Turning in his arms to face him, she looks into his intense eyes. A slight smile plays on his lips as he asks if she wants him to make this dream a reality. The girlfriend's hand gently rises to caress AJ's cheek, her touch sending a shiver through him. His crimson eyes smolder with intent as he leans down, closing the final inch between them. His lips meet hers in a soft, searching kiss that quickly deepens with undeniable passion. The world seems to melt into a warm, golden haze around them. Wrapped in robes, he cradles her face, their foreheads touching in a moment of serene intimacy. But the tranquility shatters. A sudden gasp escapes her as her eyes fly wide with a shocking realization. AJ's intensity breaks as he pulls back with a frustrated sigh. The girlfriend looks up, her blue eyes wide with concern and confusion as she asks what is wrong. He gazes at her, admitting he was unprepared but does not want their moment to end. A thoughtful silence hangs between them, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. With newfound resolve, she decides she will take the lead this time. AJ is completely stunned, a blush creeping across his face as her name, Claire, escapes his lips in a hushed, reverent whisper. With unwavering focus, Claire commits to an act of pure devotion, her only thought to show him her true feelings. A single tear traces a path down her cheek from the sheer emotional weight of her efforts. AJ's body goes rigid, his hand clenching the sheets as he surrenders completely to the overwhelming sentiment. The emotional intensity becomes too much, and she has to pull away, taking a moment to catch her breath. His concern is immediate. He gently cups her face, his crimson eyes soft with profound gratitude, assuring her that she has given him more than enough. Her blue eyes shine with sincerity as she tells him not to worry. A soft blush dusts her cheeks as she confesses that she was not expecting anything in return. She simply wanted him to be happy. Her genuine words shatter AJ's composure. He buries his face in his hands, overwhelmed by how endearing she is. His voice falters as he says her name, Jill. His hand fidgets with her sleeve before he asks about being ready. She quietly admits she has been preparing her heart for a while, just in case a moment like this ever happened. Her breath hitches, face flushed as she whispers how good it feels, completely overwhelmed by the emotion. AJ watches her, his own control fraying as his crimson eyes darken with intensity. She gasps his name, feeling the pinnacle of their bond approaching as her heart races. "I cannot take it anymore," he murmurs, his own resolve breaking. A silent scream erupts in his mind. He cannot hold back. A wave of pure euphoria crashes over them, the world dissolving into a haze as her spirit soars in absolute euphoria. A soft, shimmering haze settles around them as the girlfriend catches her breath, her body still humming with the lingering warmth. Curled up against AJ, she lightly complains when he teases her about the sheets. A warm smile plays on AJ's lips as he looks down at her. "Seriously," she pouts, "you are always teasing me." He simply replies that he cannot help it because she is too cute. A moment of silence passes before her eyes sparkle with renewed affection. "Honey," she whispers, her cheeks flushing, "that special bond we shared. I want to feel it again." A fresh wave of emotion washes over them as they begin again. The girlfriend's body trembles, a breathless sound escaping her lips. Tears gather at the corners of her eyes as she is overwhelmed by the powerful new sensation. Seeing her distress, AJ immediately halts, his crimson eyes filled with genuine concern. "Is it too much?" he asks gently, his voice low. "Should we stop? Do not push yourself." He tenderly cups her cheek, but she meets his gaze with fierce resolve, silently pleading for him to continue, her heart pounding in anticipation. As they begin again, a soft gasp escapes her lips. Tears well up in her eyes, her body trembling from the overwhelming intensity. Noticing her distress, AJ immediately pauses, his own expression filled with genuine concern. "Is it too much?" he asks gently, his voice low. "We can stop." He tenderly cups her cheek, but she shakes her head, a silent plea in her gaze. She insists he keep going. Understanding her resolve, their profound rhythm resonates, more powerful than before, carrying them both into a haze of feeling. Caught in a swirling haze of closeness, the girlfriend's voice is a mere whisper as she breathes his name. With vulnerable hope shining in her bright blue eyes, she asks if he truly likes her. A faint blush dusts AJ's cheeks, his crimson gaze softening with an unexpected sincerity. "I like you," he confesses, the simple words carrying an immense weight that hangs between them. Her eyes widen in shock. As his touch intensifies, a powerful new wave of emotion courses through her, leaving her breathless and unable to move. A smirk plays on his lips. "What is wrong?" he teases. A sly smirk crosses AJ's face, his crimson eyes gleaming with a mix of mischief and deep affection. "Then I will guide you," he murmurs, his voice a low promise. He leads her into a new, overwhelming wave of emotion, and a startled gasp escapes her lips as the world dissolves into a blur of raw feeling. Her breathless sighs fill the room, and AJ briefly thinks to himself that it is a relief they are so far from any neighbors. "Slow down," she whispers, completely overwhelmed, but he simply holds her tighter, urging her to hold on to him just a little longer. The world dissolves into a brilliant, overwhelming light as the peak of their connection arrives. In the quiet aftermath, they lie tangled together, their chests rising and falling in a shared rhythm. Tears stream from the girlfriend's bright blue eyes as she gazes at AJ, her expression filled with raw adoration. "I love you, honey," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. Her touch is incredibly gentle as she offers to care for him, a soft promise that deepens the fragile moment between them. And that's where we'll leave them for now. If this one hit you right, you already know the move. Tap subscribe. The next obsession drops twice a week, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. I pulled 2 more recaps just for you. They're on your screen right now. Pick your poison. This was Manhwa Dragon. Stay obsessed. I'll see you in the next one.